Welcome to Sunday Night with Old Time Radio. We have a classic broadcast this evening. We have a Western, crime drama, Treasure Island, comedy, and we close with what has become a regular feature for a number of months, Dam Busters. Let's get started.
At the gallop! Oh! Fort Laramie. Fort Laramie, starring Raymond Burr as Captain Lee Quince. Specially transcribed tales of the dark and tragic ground of the wild frontier, the saga of fighting men who rode the rim of empire, and the dramatic story of Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry.
"83 men for duty. Hardy and Simmons in the hospital. 5 men on leave, Captain."
All right, Corporal Mercer. Just leave the morning report on the desk.
Yes, sir. One of the 3 new men is transferred out here from Fort Larned have been assigned a 2nd platoon, sir.
Come in.
Captain Quince, the supply train's on its way in.
Oh, good.
Lieutenant Syberts is sending the train on to the quartermaster's depot, but he said he'd be right here.
All right, thanks, Jenkins.
Oh,
Supply train in from the railroad at Cheyenne, Captain. All stores is ordered.
Anything to report, Mr. Syberts?
Cracked hub, 2 mules lame, 1 destroyed, otherwise routine, sir.
Your command have a good time in Cheyenne?
I think they did. I noticed a few skinned knuckles.
Any complaints from the civilian authorities?
No, sir.
All right, Syberts. Sign out to the quartermaster. Water and turn your stock out in the South Range. Dismiss your men. They're relieved from further duty until... What's that buggy doing in your train?
Oh, I was going to tell you about that, sir. We had a passenger, a lady.
Lady?
Mrs. Wentner. She's the widow of an officer who was stationed here.
Oh, that must have been Captain Wentner.
Said he was killed by Cheyenne.
Oh, that's right. 3-4 years ago up in Lance Creek. His whole command was wiped out.
That was before my time. Wonder what she's doing here.
She didn't tell you?
No, sir. Handsome woman.
I take it you enjoyed your trip then, Mr. Syberts?
Not bad, sir. May I give you a hand, ma'am?
Thank you.
Ms. Wentner, I'm Captain Quince. Welcome to Fort Laramie.
How do you do, Captain? Are you the post commandant?
No, ma'am, that would be Major Daggett. We didn't expect you, Mrs. Wentner. Perhaps your letter was delayed.
There was no letter. I told no one I was coming.
If we had, we might have arranged a more fitting reception and better transportation.
This was quite satisfactory. I rented the horse and buggy in Cheyenne, and the lieutenant furnished me a driver. You were very considerate, Lieutenant Syberts.
Thank you, Mrs. Wentner. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll get back to the train.
Of course, thank you, Lieutenant.
Pleasure, ma'am.
If you'll come with me, Mrs. Wentner, I'll take you in to meet Major Daggett.
All right, Captain, thank you.
Take care of the horse and buggy, Jenkins.
yes, sir.
Did you know my husband, Captain Quince?
Why, yes,
Out here?
that's right.
I don't remember him mentioning you in his letters, but it seems to me there was a Quince in his class at West Point.
Oh, I wasn't at the point, Mrs. Wentner. I was commissioned in the field at Shenandoah. Up from the ranks.
Oh, I see.
Here we are.
Come in.
Oh.
Major Daggett, this is Mrs. Wentner. Just came in with a supply train.
Well, this is a pleasure, Mrs. Wentner.
That's right, Major. I'm Philip Wentner's widow.
Oh, yes. Won't you sit down?
Thank you.
I didn't know your husband myself, Mrs. Wentner, but I've been assured that his death was a great loss to the Army. Even more tragic for yourself, of course.
It was a horrible thing. And even worse, a terrible, unnecessary thing. He could have been safe in Washington. I arranged it all with the president himself.
I see.
I could never understand why Philip refused it, but he was a stubborn man.
Well, he was very popular here, I understand. Isn't that right, Captain Quince?
He was a good field officer, Miss Wentner. Perhaps he wouldn't have been happy at some desk in Washington.
It might have been better for him to be a little unhappy and alive today, mightn't it, Captain?
That's hard to say, ma'am.
Well, at any rate, we're happy to have you here, Mrs. Wentner. Sorry we weren't prepared, but I'm sure Mrs. Daggett will be able to arrange things comfortably. You'll stay with my wife and me, of course.
Thank you, Major.
And perhaps we can use your visit as an excuse to liven things up around here. We've had very few social activities. Might even arrange a reception or something of the sort.
Major Daggett, I'm not here for social reasons.
Well, what I meant was...
Major Daggett, I came to get my husband's body.
Mrs. Wentner, your husband's not buried here at the fort.
I know that. But you see, I want him recovered and taken back east. I've arranged that he will be buried with full military honors in Arlington Cemetery.
But his grave is 100 miles from here, up on Lance Creek, where he was killed.
I've already come 2,000 miles. Another 100 doesn't matter.
I don't think you understand. That's Indian territory. Cheyenne and Sioux hunting ground, treaty territory. Aside from the very real danger, my orders strictly forbid any white person to enter that region, including my own troopers.
Perhaps this letter will clear your mind. You will see it signed by the Secretary of War himself.
Yeah. Yes, I see.
So, Major Daggett, I shall want to leave for Lance Creek as soon as possible.
And you expect me to send you there with a troop escort, of course?
The letter says every assistance possible.
It also says within the scope of my orders and with due consideration for your safety.
I'm not worried about my safety, Major Daggett.
But I am.
But in a case like this...
There are no exceptions mentioned, Mrs. Wentner.
What do I care about a treaty with those savages who murdered my husband?
The treaty was made, ma'am, to prevent other men from dying the way your husband did.
Captain Quince, I'm beginning to understand why these Indian troubles go on and on. I've wondered about that. Wondered why you didn't just wipe them out. I think you're afraid of them.
It's not that easy. The Indians are people, too. They have rights.
I'm not interested in their rights, Captain Quince. And I'm not interested in your orders, Major Daggett. Am I to understand that you refuse to allow me to go to Lance Creek?
That's correct. I can't risk your life nor the lives of my men. And I won't risk a general Indian war.
Very well. Captain Quince, would you be good enough to show me to my quarters?
Of course, ma'am. Company! Right front in the line!
Right front in the line!
Ho! Company! Ho! Sergeant Gorse.
Yes, sir.
Dismiss the company.
Yes, sir. Company! Prepare to dismount! Dismount! Fire off!
Well, Captain Quince, it's all very impressive. The parade ground, The drilling?
Yes, it is, Miss Wintner.
Until you remember that in spite of all the military show, you're still afraid to face the Indians.
Have you completed your tour of inspection?
Yes. Lieutenant Seibert's has shown me everything, I think. It's all very interesting. Seeing the place that Philip called home. There's one thing I'd like explained, however.
What's that, ma'am?
What could possibly have held him here? What holds you, Captain Quince?
I'm afraid I can't explain it to you, Mrs. Wintner.
I'm sure you couldn't.
May I escort you to your quarters?
Thank you. I've noticed several men dressed in buckskins lounging about the store. The sutlers, you call it. Who are they?
Civilian scouts. Charlie Reynolds, Will Granby, Pete Hazen.
It was one of them, wasn't it, who found my husband up on Lance Creek?
Yes, ma'am. Pete Hazen. He led the burial detail back.
I must talk to him sometime.
He's under the major's orders, too, ma'am.
I meant, Captain Quince, he might be able to tell me things about my husband. Things a wife would like to know.
Of course, ma'am.
You don't like me, do you, Captain?
I don't know you well enough to like or dislike you, Mrs. Wintner. But it seems plain to me that you intend to disregard every consideration to get to Lance Creek.
If you'll excuse me.
Come in. Captain Quince reporting, sir.
Oh, Lee. I've just been thinking, Caldwell's due for a leave. Who can we send out to the Clearwater Patrol as replacement? Is Seibert's too green?
No, he'll do. He's come along fast.
All right, good.
Major, what about Mrs. Wintner?
Well, what about her?
I think she's going to make trouble.
I don't think she can. I've kept a check of the telegraph office and the mail. I think she's accepting the inevitable.
I don't. I think she's determined to go to Lance Creek, one way or another.
How can she, if I won't let her?
I don't know, but I think you better warn the civilian scouts, especially Pete Hazen.
Oh, he wouldn't be that much of a fool.
I wouldn't think so either. But with her, anything can happen.
I believe that. She's quite a woman. Oh, by the way, the evening social's all set up for Saturday night. Nettie's sending out the invitations today. Having a small dinner first. You're supposed to come.
Oh?
As Mrs. Wintner's escort.
Why me?
You're an inmate of Old Bedlam. You're eligible.
There are other bachelor officers living there, Seibert's.
Youngsters. She's more your age. Now, don't fight it, Lee. Nettie's mind's made up.
Only one thing I don't like about your wife, Major. She's a matchmaker.
Yeah, I know. She can't help herself. Hates to see an unmarried officer, especially one as old as you. But after all, Mrs. Wintner is a widow and mighty attractive. You could do worse.
Major, some women are Army, some aren't. When Phil Wintner came out to Laramie, he came alone.
She seems to fit in fine now. Maybe she's changed.
Women like that don't change.
Just the same, you'll escort her Saturday night. You better present your compliments to her tomorrow afternoon.
That an order, sir?
Tomorrow afternoon, Lee. White gloves.
Oh, Captain Quince.
Afternoon, Mrs. Daggett. I'd like to present my compliments to Mrs. Wintner.
Why, yes, of course, Captain. Only, well...
What is it, Miss Daggett?
Well, it's very strange. But last night, Carolyn asked not to be disturbed this morning. Said she wanted to sleep late. But when she didn't come out, even for luncheon, I got worried. So a few minutes ago, I knocked and looked in her room. She's not there, Captain. She didn't sleep in her bed last night. Captain, where are you going?
To the settlers, Miss Daggett. You better tell the Major.
Lee, what do you make of it?
It's very simple, Major. Mrs. Wentner was last seen last night. Pete Hazen left sometime before dawn with 2 loaded pack mules, 2 horses, 1 rig side saddle. He left this at the Sutlers for you with a $20 gold piece. Guess it's his resignation. Didn't want to get arrested for disobeying orders.
Yeah, you're right.
They're on their way to Lance Creek. They got at least 11 hours start.
They've got to be stopped.
Yeah, if they're still alive.
How long will it take you to get B Company ready?
Too long. Besides, a full company up there will mean war.
You think you can get a small detachment through, 5 or 6 men?
I can try. And if we're caught, we might be able to talk our way out of it.
They can't be moving very fast.
I'd say I could catch them about halfway.
All right, Lee. Take the men you want and an extra amount for each. Rations for 4 days and 200 rounds of ammunition.
50 rounds will be enough, Major. We have to fight at all. It won't matter how much ammunition we have.
I've lost their tracks, Captain.
There, over there, Gorse.
Oh, yeah, that's it. I'd never believed it, Captain. 2 days from the fort almost to Lance Creek, and they're still ahead of us.
I underestimated that woman. She's tougher than I thought.
She sure must be. Captain,
Yep, and they've seen us.
they've stopped.
Ho! Miss Wentner?
How do you do, Captain?
She gave me an awful lot of money, Captain, more than I'd ever seen in one piece.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
You're not going to stop me now, Captain. Mr. Hazen says the graves are just over that ridge there.
Miss Wentner, we're going to turn around right here and head back to the fort as fast as we can make it. Do you have any idea of the danger?
Captain, up there on the hill,
Yeah, I see.
riding circle, signaling.
Why, that's an Indian.
It is, Miss Wentner.
Oh,
Captain, what are you going to do?
Might as well go on up to Lance Creek. Do what the lady came to do.
This is it. Right over there. This one.
just this?
That's it.
You're sure?
His insignia will be inside the rocks.
It's so quiet here. So peaceful.
Right now it is. Get a spade, Jenkins.
Yes, sir.
Miss Wentner, you sure you want to go through with this?
What do you mean, Captain?
Why, it wasn't time for a proper burial.
I see. Did they do anything to him?
Cheyenne always do.
You may proceed.
All right, Jenkins. Miss Wentner, why don't you wait over there?
Captain Quince, I'm not a schoolgirl. I came this far. I can stand to watch.
All right. Pete, who was this?
That there was Sergeant Tackleberry, Captain.
One with a red mustache, Captain?
And a laugh you could hear clean across the river.
Yeah, I remember.
And that one there was Lieutenant Williams.
Yep.
Captain, is that the Lieutenant Williams my husband used to speak about in his letters?
I expect so. They were friends. All these men were his friends. Men who lived with him, fought with him, died with him. He He wasn't alone, Miss Wintner. They're all buried here where they fell.
I see. Mr. Jenkins.
Ma'am?
Stop digging for a moment. Captain, you don't want me to do this. Why?
I don't think your husband would care about being buried in Arlington Cemetery.
Why? Tell me, Captain Quince. You knew him? What was he like out here?
Like any other man, not very different. But he liked it. Liked the country, the men, liked the job. He was willing to die here if necessary.
Are you trying to say that he came here to get away? That he didn't want to go back home? That he didn't care about me?
He never talked about you, Miss Wintner.
Captain, all I want to do is take him back to a hero's grave.
He's in a hero's grave. Nothing you or I can do will add to that.
You think I'm a selfish woman. I was thinking only of myself, of my pride.
Only you can answer that, Miss Wintner.
On the ridge, Captain.
Yeah, they didn't waste any time.
Must have been a hunting party close. They're coming down.
Must be 30 at least. Doesn't give us much chance, Captain.
Oh.
It's important to keep calm, Miss Wintner. Very important right now.
What have I done? Bringing you men here to this.
We may be able to get out of it yet. Talbot, keep those horses under control. When they get a whiff of those Indian ponies. Miss Wintner, what are you doing?
If anything's going to happen, I want his grave just the way it was.
Jenkins, help her.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Gorse.
Yes, sir.
Watch her. Stay right behind her. If the Indians attack you, you know what to do.
Yes, sir.
Don't miss.
I won't.
What do you think, Hazen?
Can't tell yet. They're still bunched, ain't hurrying. But they ain't gonna be friendly.
No, we're uninvited guests. Can't expect much.
They're down and stringing out.
And stopping. Right across the only way out.
Well, they won't come any closer to the graves. Cheyenne custom, respect for the dead. Even the dead they killed. We're safe as long as we stay right here.
How long can we stay, Pete?
Captain, we might try cutting up over the ridge.
No, the minute we break and run, we're finished. I'll go out to him.
Might as well all go, Captain. There'll be no defending ourselves anyways.
All right. Miss Wintner?
Looks all right now, doesn't it, Captain?
Yes, it does. Well, ma'am?
Don't worry, I'll be fine.
Good. Now, everybody will move slowly forward, leading your horses. Move easily. Don't show any fear or excitement.
It's Little Bear, Captain.
At least he can talk some. Won't have to use sign.
That's right, Captain.
I'll do the talking, Hazen.
Sure.
Greetings to Little Bear.
White soldier give promise. Stay off Cheyenne hunting ground. Why you come?
We come in peace, not war. We don't want trouble with the Cheyenne. They don't want trouble with us.
Treaties say you stay out.
I know
I
that
made them come.
the white lady came to find the grave of her husband. A warrior killed in battle here. She wants to take his body back to his home, to Washington.
What warrior?
The little captain. The captain with the yellow hair.
That one great warrior.
Captain, these are the Indians.
That's right, ma'am. Little Bear, the Cheyenne had great warriors killed here, too. But the Cheyenne could take their dead away to their proper burial place. Will Little Bear allow us to take this warrior with us and leave the hunting ground in peace?
Better leave spirit of dead in peace.
In Washington, there is a place to bury great warriors with much honor. She will take him there
Better leave dead buried.
All right, Captain. We'll leave him. He's right. I know that now. Philip is better off here, in his hero's grave.
All right, ma'am. Will Little Bear allow us to leave the hunting grounds in peace?
Go.
Thank you, Little Bear. All right. Everybody mount up. Easy. We'll move out now, before he changes his mind. Sergeant Gorse, how does it look behind?
They're turning away. I figure it's all right.
We'll keep the horses at walk just the same for a while.
Yes, sir.
Captain. Thank you.
What for, Mrs. Wentner? It was probably your presence that saved us and what you said.
No, I mean, for teaching me a lesson.
Not me, Miss Wentner. Let's say this country out here. It can teach you a lot of lessons. Maybe I was wrong about something, too.
What?
Oh, just something I said about people not changing. Just something I said. You know, we keep moving. We might be able to make the Daggett Social Saturday night.
Fort Laramie is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald and stars Raymond Burr as Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry, with Vic Perrin as Sergeant Gorse. The script was specially written for Fort Laramie by John Dunkel, with sound patterns by Bill James and Ray Kemper. Musical supervision by Amerigo Marino. Featured in the cast were Virginia Gregg, Jack Moyles, Harry Bartell, Jack Crucian, Helen Klebe, Joseph Cranston, and James Nusser.
Company, tension! Dismiss!
Next week, another transcribed story of the Northwest frontier and the troopers who fought under Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry. Half a loaf may be better than none at all when you're bargaining for bread. But every Sunday, the Edgar Bergen Show calls for a happier arrangement than that. For each half of the Edgar Bergen Show seems somehow to be better than the other half. And with so much fun in store, there's no need for compromise. Enjoy all of the lighthearted antics of Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy, Jack Kirkwood, Effie Clinker, Mortimer Snerd, Gary Crosby, Carol Richards, and the famous Edgar Bergen End Table Discussion Group. They'll all be with you again over most of these same stations every Sunday night.
Of kids eat Armour hot dogs.
Fat kids, skinny kids, kids who climb on rocks, soft kids, fizzy kids,
even kids with chicken pox love hot dogs.
Armour hot dogs.
The dog kids love to bite. Picking it up on the old banjo, put on the mustard and away we go.
Good evening. This is Crime Classics. I am Thomas Hyland. Listen. The man in nondescript uniform dropping stones into that well is a mercenary soldier. More recently, a deserter. He's testing the depth of the well, the only way he knows, since a length of rope is not immediately available, and more complicated machines are as yet undiscovered. This is the year 1778, and the deserter is named James Buchanan. Next to him is his friend, another deserter whose name is William Brooks. These men are in the employ of Mrs. Bathsheba Spooner of Brookfield, Massachusetts, whose well it is. Mrs. Spooner will pay these men immediately they deposit the body of her murdered husband. Right down there. And tonight, my report to you on the crime of Bathsheba Spooner, the first woman to be tried for murder in the United States.
Crime Classics, a new series of true crime stories taken from the records and newspapers of every land, from every time. Your host each week, Mr. Thomas Hyland, connoisseur of crime, student of violence, and teller of murders. Now, once again, Thomas Hyland.
The place is Brookfield, Massachusetts, the year 1778. Scene, the home of Joshua and Bathsheba Spooner, a large and respectable dwelling, 2 stories in height, situated on the north side of the road from Brookfield to Worcester. In the front of it, and nearly opposite on the south side of the road, are stately elms and a well. And in the living room, there's this.
What manner of woman are you, Bathsheba? There's no content in you and no happiness.
And what happiness have you given me? A life that dies quickly, cooking and sewing, and from you, drunken sleep.
And you've not answered me. You would like to see me dead, would you not?
Listen to me, Joshua. When you returned this morning from Worcester, my heart sank in me. I'd hoped you wouldn't come back.
That I would have an accident. That in some way I would be killed.
Yes.
That you would be free then.
Yes.
To walk the town, newly widowed with a wandering eye.
Yes.
And you listen, shrew. I am your husband, and I'm your lover, and that's the way things are.
Old man! Old man! Ezra? Ezra?
I've been waiting. Bathsheba.
Wait.
No more waiting, Bathsheba. The time I was away from you with your husband in Worcester. The thinking about you.
And there'll be more waiting. Until it's done. Until you kill him.
I tried, but I could not.
He asked me a question, my husband did. What manner of woman are you, he asked. Now I wonder. What manner of woman am I to love such as you, a youth? A boy who pretends to manhood. You without the courage to...
The poison you gave me, there was no opportunity, Bathsheba.
And a boy who lies. Opportunity. When it becomes nighttime, my husband becomes a drunkard. You know that. To empty the poison in the cup when you were with him, a simple thing like that you couldn't do.
I swear it to you, Bathsheba. He'll die.
When? Go to him now. To the tavern where he is. Empty the poison.
I threw the poison away.
With no courage.
Bathsheba.
Speak my name and bedevil yourself with it.
Just kiss me, Bathsheba.
No kisses. No secret whisperings. None of that. No more. Until my husband is dead. Laugh then. You'll see I mean it.
There's a wench, Bathsheba, at the other end of town. And she watches me when I walk by.
Then go to her.
All right.
Wait. Don't leave me.
You almost let me go.
Boy, you...
Bathsheba.
Kill him. Kill my husband.
Later.
And that was Bathsheba Spooner. You've come to know her pretty well. You've seen her hating, you've seen her loving. There's more you should know. She was the 6th child of an illustrious man, General Ruggles, The general was a man of great wealth and lived in a style of unusual luxury for that day. He kept 30 horses and had a park of 20 acres for deer and a pack of hounds for the amusement of numerous visitors. He was a man intensely loyal to the British Crown and never hid his loyalties. And so, at the outbreak of the Revolutionary War, he was forced to give up his estate and to leave the country. His married life was also pretty bad, and he and his wife did not set a good example to his children in their conjugal relations. Bathsheba sprang from that kind of a household. Her loyalist background in time of war, and the very fact of the name she had, Bathsheba, were sufficient cause for the town in which she lived to view her with alarm. But keep this in mind. Bathsheba Spooner is going to murder her husband. How? Well, let's see how time and motive and circumstance conspire to get a man violently dead. The man, Joshua Spooner. Let's pick him up and see what he's doing. It's the same evening, and since it's after dark, he's drinking. And in Brookfield, there's only one public house in which to drink, Cooley's Tavern. And that's where he is.
Oh, no, Doctor. Then what would you do? To trap General Burgoyne, very simple. Hand me your tankard, Dr. King. Now, and here, this spoon, the line of march of Burgoyne. And your tankard and mine, 2 sections of the troops of General Washington. Now watch. And that's how we take care of General Burgoyne. Yeah. Barkeep, more ale.
Joshua Spooner talks of strategies and drinks his ale. But mark this. Near the bar, another table. 2 men in nondescript uniforms, deserters from the army of General Burgoyne. Their names, James Buchanan and William Brooks. They've made known the fact that they've deserted the enemy, so their drinks are on the house and the appreciative customers. They're having a fine time.
Drink your ale, Will. Make me a toast and I'll drink with you.
And a toast you shall get. Burgoyne is a scurvy...
Louder, Will, louder, else we'll pay for our own ale.
Aye. A toast. Aye, I'll give you a toast to that scurvy, plump-bellied Burgoyne. May he rot in the wilderness.
That is, if he don't drown coming across the St. Lawrence.
Gentlemen.
And a merry evening to you.
Joshua Spooner is my name, and it would do me proud if you would permit me
Ale is what we're drinking, sir.
Ale for the patriot!
And patriots we are, indeed, to goodness.
Oh, yes. We joined General Washington, sir, and his colonials. You should know that. And from here, we go to Worcester, where a column of Washington's hearties ale. To you, sir, and thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Willie Bach, your tankard is dry, and so is mine.
If you will permit me, gentlemen, it would be my pleasure. My pleasure indeed.
It would be Mr. Spooner's pleasure indeed to buy the lads more ale, as was the custom. True, it was 1778, but the etiquette was the same. Nothing too good for our boys. And the deserters in Cooley's bar were off to join our boys. As a matter of fact, it was Mr. Spooner's pleasure to direct James Buchanan and William Brooks to Worcester to become soldiers in Washington's army. It just happened that one of the landmarks that Mr. Spooner gave the lads went something like this.
Now, mark you. A file of elms and a well. And across the road from it, my house. When you pass there, you'll be leaving Brookfield. And you will know you're on your way. We'll have another ale before you leave.
You're a gentleman if I ever met one.
Oh, a true one, James, my lad. A real gent.
So they touched tankards, the deserters and Joshua Spooner, and they made tearful farewell. And the deserters left and walked the road toward where the elms were, and a house, and a well. Let's go on ahead of them. Let's get back to the lady. Bathsheba is home. Bathsheba is fixing her hair. And the youth Ezra? He's tying into it night ribbons, a lover's tender gesture. Their talk, however, is shocking.
Perhaps you're right. Perhaps the best way is not to poison him.
I say shoot him.
Perhaps, in such a way as to make it appear as an accident. Will you shoot him, Ezra? Tightly with the ribbon, dear. Ezra?
I have not the courage for it.
But you know of guns and shooting. You were in the army for a year.
I marched. I shot no one. I marched upon an ambush and was wounded. Myself, I never pulled a trigger.
If not you to kill him, Ezra, then someone.
Yes. Turn from your mirror, Bathsheba, and look at me.
Oh, listen. Do you hear?
Yes. Drunkards.
Someone. Go to the window.
Drunkards. 2 of them by the moon. British deserters. I've seen them in town.
Call to them.
Bathsheba.
Call to them.
Hello! You there!
What do you want?
I'll talk to them.
A lady wants to talk to you.
A lady? At the ladies' service any time.
Let them in, Ezra.
The Bathsheba Spooner who greeted the deserters must have been quite a sight. Tall, long hair, and blue ribbons. There must have been a fire in the fireplace, and in all probability she was standing in front of it. Her manner was gracious, and she was smiling. Ezra served the liquor. All in all, it was the nicest thing that could possibly have happened to 2 fellows who had deserted General Burgoyne.
And now, gentlemen, a question.
We bow. Bow, James, my lad. Say on, my lady.
How would you gentlemen like 500 pounds to see you on your long journey?
Merchano, 'twould warm the cockles, wouldn't it, Will?
'Twould. Does that answer you, my lady?
And what would you do for it?
There is nothing that Will and I have not done, and for less handsome payment from less handsome women.
Far less.
Kill my husband.
This lad, the one you call Ezra.
Come here, lad. The next skinny ones don't take long for twisting.
Not him. Not Ezra.
Not him, James.
Then who?
My husband will return from his drinking. Will you wait for him? Kill him? When he returns, meet him outside at the door and greet him. Will you?
Not only for the money, dear lady, but for the pleasure of your presence to 2 tired soldiers. Right, James?
It's the truth.
You be the master of this house?
Huh? Yeah. And you are the 2...
That we be.
This one was a struggler, he will.
Get the woman. And the one she calls Ezra.
Aye. Mrs. Spooner, come see, it is done. And a tidy job, if I say so myself, Mrs. Spooner.
And now he's dead.
What will you do with him?
There's a well across the road.
Aye. Give us a hand, James. And you, Ezra. There.
I'll walk with you.
It's a deep well.
Poor little man.
And that's how Joshua Spooner died. And that's how Bathsheba Spooner killed him. You are listening to Crime Classics and your host,
Thomas Hyland. Later this evening, the Lux Summer Theater stars Fred McMurray in a full-hour adaptation of the romantic mystery comedy The Lady and the Tumblers, an odd triangle composed of a beautiful girl, a suitcase full of explosive letters, and a murdered man will make The Lady and the Tumblers' most unusual dramatic fare. Listen to it on most of these same stations later this evening when CBS Radio presents the Lux Summer Theater. And now, once again, Thomas Hyland and the second act of Crime Classics and his report to you on the crime of Bathsheba Spooner.
Listen to this. It's awful and dread, this tale that I tell. Joshua Spooner lies dead in a well in Brookfield town in 78 from 6 stout whacks across the pate. Small poem by an anonymous contributor to the Worcester Spy, the local newspaper of the day. A change of scene now. Across the road from a cold well into a warm living room. Tableau, 4 people.
Mr. Spooner was such an elegant man. What will become of his clothes in his closet and his horse?
You may have them.
Come away from the window, Bathsheba. Here, to me, close.
The stars are dancing.
You're shivering. Are you cold?
No.
Will is very weary, Widow Spooner. We'll not go on to Worcester tonight.
Then wait till morning. You can make a place for yourselves in the barn.
But the money we'll have now, and the clothes and the horse.
Yes, all of it. Ezra.
Yes?
In the morning, you will go to Cooley's Tavern. Inquire of Joshua. Tell them he's not been home. Tell them I'm frantic for his welfare.
Yes.
Good night, gentlemen. A very good night.
Mr. Cooley.
Aye? Hot grog on a nippy morning, Mr. Ross?
I've been sent to inquire of Joshua Spooner.
Who sent you?
The wife of him, Bathsheba.
Did she now? And why?
Last night he did not return home, and Mrs. Spooner is frantic for his welfare.
Not home? Well, he's not here. Last night he sat right there, my lad, and discussed military strategies with the doctor. Then, to the best of my knowledge, he went home.
Dr. King. Doctor, wake up. Please, Doctor, wake up. It's important.
What is it? What?
Where is Joshua Spooner?
Where is he?
Mr. Cooley says he sat with you last night.
As he did, and left me.
He's not home.
What?
Mrs. Spooner sent me to fetch him. She's troubled that he's not returned.
But where else could he have gone if not to his wife?
We must find him, Doctor.
Yes, by all means.
Ezra did that very well, with the precise shading of alarm in his voice, the concern. A man on an errand for a troubled lady. Everybody was impressed. Mr. Cooley closed his bar. Dr. King appealed to the neighborliness of the other customers, and everybody went looking for Joshua Spooner. Immediately, they called on Mrs. Spooner, whom they found in the greatest apparent distress. Upon an examination of the premises, in the neighborhood of the doorstep, they observed the tracks of several persons on the snow. And on further search, they found Mr. Spooner. You know where. In the well. So far, only horror and suspicions. But now, let's pick up Willie and James. They haven't left Brookfield. Stupid of them, isn't it? But then you've got to examine it from their point of view. Why become soldiers in Washington's army, especially in the winter, and suffer the privations of the military, when they could be warm and rich as a civilian? So, imagine it. 2 tatterdemalion deserters, suddenly elegant, in Mr. Spooner's clothes, which were somewhat tight-fitting. But elegance and tight-fitting are somehow akin. Now, there lived in Brookfield a certain wench whose name is lost in history. This much is known about her. She had an eye for tight elegance. This much is known about her, too, that she went riding with Willie and James on their newly acquired horse.
I'll help you down.
Now, James. No.
Give us a bus, dearie. That's a dearie.
Will,
Aye.
how is it we are riding Mr. Spooner's horse?
Why, dearie, we don't know a Mr. Spooner.
Aren't these Mr. Spooner's silver buckles?
No.
Aren't you wearing his clothes?
These are our clothes, dearie. Come, let's ride some more. It brings the pink to your pretty cheeks.
But the cat was out of the bag. The girl told her mother, and her mother her father. And it so happened that her father was at that moment on his way to look for the murderers of Joshua Spooner. So the father told some neighbors, and they located James and Willie, brought them all together. The two deserters, Ezra and Bathsheba. And this is what happened.
The jurors for the government and people of Massachusetts Bay in New England, upon their oath, present that William Brooks and James Buchanan and Ezra Ross in the county of Essex, not having God before their eyes, an assault did make upon Joshua Spooner, feloniously, willfully, and of their malice aforethought, on the first day of March last past, with force and arms also by striking, beating, and kicking aforesaid Joshua Spooner, so as to inflict several mortal bruises, of which Joshua Spooner died. And that Bathsheba Spooner, widow and late wife of Joshua Spooner, being seduced by the instigation of the devil, did incite, move, abet, counsel, and procure the murder of aforesaid Joshua Spooner. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
What statement have you, Bathsheba Spooner?
I am the wife of the deceased. If what you accuse me of be true, what end could the death of my husband serve? Were there any reasons, persuading, hopes, inviting, or advantages arising from the death of my husband? By depriving myself of husband, I would subject myself to the burdens of a widow. If I hated my husband, as such has been said, could I not have separated from him, gone to my father or to my brothers? What foolishness is this to say I've loved Ezra Ross, when one of my station might have any gallant I please? Gentlemen, if I be guilty, I was not of sound mind.
To the sheriff of our county of Essex, greetings. We command you that on Thursday, the 4th day of June next, between the hours of 12 and 4 of the clock in the afternoon, you cause William Brooks, James Buchanan, Ezra Ross, and Bathsheba Spooner to be conveyed from our jail, where they are now in your custody, to the usual place of execution, and there to be hanged by the neck until their bodies be dead.
The motive, the crime, and the sentence. Justice was simple. And quickly, too quickly for the four prisoners, the 4th day of June. This is a copy of the Worcester Spy dated that day that I have here. I'd like to read from it. It was about 2:30 of the clock in the afternoon when the four criminals were brought out of prison and conducted to the place of execution under a guard of 100 men. The three men went on foot. Mrs. Spooner was carried in a chaise, being then, as she had been for several days, exceedingly feeble. The procession was regular and solemn. Just before they reached the place of execution, one of the most terrific thunderstorms that had occurred within the memory of the oldest inhabitant darkened the heavens. There followed an awful time. The loud shouts of the officers amidst a crowd of 5,000 people. The horses pressing upon those in front. The shrieks of the women in the tumult and confusion. The malefactors slowly advancing to the fatal tree, preceded by the dismal coffins. The fierce coruscations of the lightning athwart the darkened horizon, quickly followed by loud peals of thunder, conspired together and produced a dreadful scene of horror. It seemed as if the author of Nature had added such terrors to the punishment of the criminals as might soften the stoutest heart of the most obdurate and abandoned. At length, the place of execution having been reached, Ross, Buchanan, and Brooks ascended the ladder to the stage.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Ross made an audible prayer. The other two were engaged in silent devotions until they faced the noose. Mrs. Spooner, as she approached the tree, was seen to bow gracefully to many of the spectators with whom she had been acquainted. Then she crept up the ladder on her hands and knees. When the eyes of the malefactors were covered and all was ready, Mrs. Spooner took the sheriff by the hand. And for the first time, Bathsheba Spooner accepted the verdict of justice.
My dear sir, I am ready. In a little time I expect to be in bliss. And but a few years must elapse when I hope I shall see you and my other friends again.
And that's the way the newspaper recorded it. This has been my report of the crime of Bathsheba Spooner, the first woman tried and executed for murder in the United States.
In just a moment, Thomas Hyland will tell you about next week's Crime Classic. The National Blood Program has been made part of the Department of Defense. That's how vital a continuing growing stockpile is against emergencies of war or peace. In the warm weather months, donations fall off. In the first week of June alone, donations dropped 20%. This must be offset immediately. Before you go away, please phone the Red Cross for an appointment to give a pint of blood. You will enjoy your vacation more for having done it. And here again is Thomas Hyland.
Next week, we'll be with you at the same time, although geography and year will change. The place? Pimlico, England. The year, 1879. My report? On the shockingly peaceful passing of Thomas Edwin Bartlett, greengrocer. Thank you. Good night.
Bathsheba Spooner, tonight's crime classic, was adapted from the original court reports and newspaper accounts by Morton Fine and David Friedkin. The music was composed and conducted by Bernard Herrmann, and the program was produced and directed by Elliott Lewis. Thomas Hyland is portrayed on radio by Lou Merrill. Bathsheba Spooner was played by Mary Jane Croft. The cast included Herb Butterfield, Sam Edwards, William Johnstone, Georgia Ellis, Tudor Owen, and Ben Wright. Bob Lamont speaking. Stay tuned now for Gary Moore with Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts, which follows immediately over most of these same stations. And remember, for mystery mixed with merriment, join Mr. and Mrs. North Tuesday evenings on the CBS Radio Network.
Columbia Network takes pleasure in presenting Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air, in the second of a unique new summer series of 9 dramatic productions. The first time in its history that radio has brought to the country an entire theatrical institution. Columbia is proud to welcome Orson Welles to its roster of stars and to give him the opportunity of bringing to the air those same qualities of vitality and imagination that have made him the most talked of theatrical director in America today.
Good evening. This is Orson Welles speaking. If there's anything bloodthirstier than a werewolf, it's a pirate. The Mercury Theater is playing safe. Now, if vampires and their ilk leave you as uncannily cold as old Dracula himself, who was staked down firmly and it is to be hoped permanently in his own family plot last week, then there are figures to prove that you are susceptible to buried treasure. We calculate that no decent, law-abiding citizen is immune to pirates. There are cowboys and Indians, there are gangsters and G-men, but these delights are inconstant like the short skirt. I don't care how young you are. Nothing charms, nothing ingratiates, nothing wins like a one-legged, double-barreled buccaneer with earrings, a handkerchief on his head, and a knife in his teeth. What could be more appropriate on the starboard rail of your four-masted brigantine? If you haven't a four-masted brigantine, you have Treasure Island. It's in your library because it's a great English classic, and this evening, because it's a great story, it's on your radio. That's what I mean by playing safe. Once there was a small boy who asked his stepfather, who had written a number of books, please, to write something interesting. The stepfather, seeing his point, immediately contributed a serial to something repugnant called Young Folks, a periodical circulated among that section of the English nation known as Tiny Tots, who were very prevalent in the 80s. The name of the serial was The Sea Cook by Captain George North, and if the Tiny Tots didn't think it was interesting, they should have been boiled in oil. The story was begun, the stepfather says, on a chill September morning by the cheek of a brisk fire and the rain drumming on the window. The small boy himself helped a lot, even though Captain North got the credit, and so did a third and equally incurable small boy, the author's father. They drew a map first, the chart of an island showing very queer and wonderful attractions, Spyglass Shoulder, for instance, and Skeleton Island, and the North Cache with the bar silver, and then, on that chill September morning by that brisk fire of theirs, the three plotters buried their plunder. Doubloons and louis d'or, gold and silver and rich jewels and pieces of 8. That's why the story was finally called Treasure Island. It's foolish to guess who's tuned in on this broadcast, but if in some way, we who are retelling this story hope devoutly that he, who the Samoans laid to rest in the hills of their own faraway Treasure Island and who is still known out there only as the great teller of tales, would not wish tonight as he did, so unaccountably at first, to suppress the real name of Captain George North. The small boy, of course, should have been decorated. It's a better world because he asked for something interesting. But then he was lucky. There are millions and millions of small boys. But only one of us had Robert Louis Stevenson for a stepfather.
Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson with Orson Welles as Long John Silver and as Jim Hawkins who tells the story. Treasure Island.
Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesey, and the rest of the gentlemen having asked me to write down the whole particulars about Treasure Island, from the beginning to the end, keeping nothing back but the bearings of the island, and that only because there is treasure not yet lifted, I take up my pen in the year of grace 1783 and go back to that time 19 years ago when my father kept the Admiral Benbow Inn and the brown old seaman with a saber cut first took up his lodging under our roof. I was 14, but I remember him as if it were yesterday. Mother called to me from upstairs.
Yes, Mother? There's a man coming up the road. Go out and see what he wants.
He came plodding to the inn door, his sea chest following behind him on a hand barrow. A tall, strong, heavy, nut-brown man, his tarry pigtail falling over the shoulders of his soiled blue coat, his hands ragged and scarred with black broken nails, and the saber cut across one cheek, a dirty, livid white, singing that old sea song that he sang so often afterwards.
Open up in there! Now then, boy.
Yes, sir?
What do you call this place?
The Admiral Benbow Inn, sir.
Admiral Benbow, eh? Nice, lonely-looking, pleasant-situated grog shop. Folks don't come here much, do they, boy? Not much company?
No, sir, more's pity.
No? Well, then it's the berth for me. I'm a plain man, rum and bacon, eggs, all I want, and that head up there for to watch ships off. Never mind to stay here a bit. Here, you matey. You with a wheelbarrow. Bring up alongside. Help up my chest. You two boys, heavy.
Yes, sir.
Call me Captain, boy. Captain.
Yes, Captain.
Just one thing more.
Yes, Captain?
You ain't seen him, have you?
No, sir. Who do you mean?
Along the road, maybe. You might have seen him somewheres you can't tell. Let me know if you do, boy. A seafaring man.
Yes, sir.
With one leg.
Yes, sir.
Captain!
Yes, Captain.
Bring me a noggin of rum, boy.
And so he came to live under our roof. We never knew his name. We called him the Captain. He was a very silent man by custom all day. He hung around the cove or upon the cliffs with a brass telescope staring out to sea. All evening he sat in a corner of the parlor next to the fire and drank rum and water, very strong. And every day when he came back from his stroll, he would ask the same question.
Jim?
Yes, Captain?
Any seafaring men go by today along the road?
No, Captain.
And Jim?
Yes, sir.
You're a good boy, Jim. You wouldn't lie to me ever, would you, Jim?
No, sir.
You haven't seen him, have you, Jim? Jim, there's a silver fourpenny for you on the first of every month. If you'll keep your weather eye open for a seafaring man with one leg. Let me know the moment you see him, won't you, Jim? A seafaring man with one leg.
How that personage haunted my dreams. On stormy nights when the wind shook the four corners of the house and the surf roared along the cove and up the cliffs, I could see him in 1,000 forms. Now the leg would be cut off at the knee, now at the hip. Now he was a monstrous kind of a creature who had never had but one leg, and that in the middle of his body.
You'll keep your weather eye open, won't you, Jim? For a seafaring man with one leg. A seafaring man with one leg.
Months went by. The captain bade fair to ruin us. We kept on staying week after week, month after month.
And never a penny of money, Jim. Not a penny has he paid us since the day he came here. And me, a poor widow woman.
Mother, why don't you ask him for some?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, Jim. I'm afraid to ask him. I'm afraid of the man. Now, if your father...
In all that time, none of us ever saw him open the great sea chest that was in his room. There were nights when he took a deal more rum and water than his head could carry. Often I heard the house shaking and all the neighbors joining in for dear life.
Drink and the devil has done. Quiet, amidships! Quiet!
He would force them all to listen to his stories. Dreadful stories they were, about hanging and walking the plank and storms at sea and the dry Tortugas and wild deeds and places on the Spanish Main. By his own account, he must have lived his life among some of the wickedest men that God ever allowed upon the sea. The captain had been living with us almost a year when there occurred the first of the mysterious events that rid us at last of his presence. It was one January morning, very early, a pinching, frosty morning. The captain had risen earlier than usual and set down the beach with his telescope under his arm. My mother was upstairs and I was lying at the breakfast table against the captain's return when the parlor door opened and a stranger stepped in.
Sonny, come here, Sonny. Is this table for my mate Bill?
I don't know you, mate Bill. I'm laying this for a man who stays in the house. We call him the captain.
Well, my mate Bill would be called the captain like as not. Now, we'll put it for argument like that your captain's got a cut on one cheek. And we'll put it, if you like, that cheek's the right one, eh? Well, God save me, there he is now. There's my mate Bill. That's him with a spyglass under his arm. Bless his old heart, to be sure. You and me'll just get back behind the door, Sonny. And we'll give Bill a little surprise, we will. Bless his heart, I says again. Yo! Hello, Bill. Come, Bill. You knows me. You knows an old shipmate, Bill, surely. Black dog as ever was. Bill. We've seen a sight of times, us two.
So you run me down. Here I am. Well, speak up. What is it?
That's you, Bill. You're in the right of it, Billy. I'll have a glass of rum from this dear child here, what I've took such a liking to. And we'll sit down, if you please, and talk square like old shipmates. Sit down, Bill. And you, Sonny, get out.
Yes, sir.
And none of your keels on me, do you hear?
For a while, I could hear nothing but a low gabbing. Suddenly, the voices began to grow higher.
No. And an end on it. If it comes to swinging, swing all. Say aye!
I saw Black Dog streaming blood run off down the road. Presently, the captain returned. Alone.
Give me some rum.
Captain, are you hurt?
I must get away from here. Get away, that's what. I must get away from here.
What's happened, Jim? What's happened?
It's the captain, Mother.
The captain? Oh, dear me, what a disgrace. I've been afraid of something like this ever since he came into the house with that old chest of his.
I got the rum and tried to put it down his throat, but his teeth were tightly shut and his jaws were as strong as iron. An hour later, our friend Dr. Livesey came.
Doctor, what shall we do?
Where is he wounded, Doctor?
Wounded? A fiddlestick's end. No more wounded than you or I. The man's had a stroke.
Where's Black Dog?
Black Dog? There is no Black Dog except what you have on your own back. You've been drinking rum, man, and you've had a stroke. Now, listen to me. One glass of rum a day won't kill you. But if you take one, you'll take another and another, and then you'll die. Die and go to your own place like the man in the Bible, and the world will be rid of a very dirty scoundrel. Do you understand that? The name of rum for you is death.
About noon the next day, I stopped at the captain's door with some medicine.
Who is it?
It's me, Jim.
Come in, Jim. Come in.
He was lying very much as we'd left him.
Jim, you're the only one here that's worth anything. You know I always been good to you. I never a month but I've given you a silver fourpenny for yourself. Now you see, mate, I'm pretty low and deserted by all. Jim, you'll bring me a noggin of rum, won't you, matey?
But the doctor...
Doctors is all swabs! Don't have a drain of rum, Jim. I'll have the horrors. I've seen some of them already. I've seen old Flint in the corner there behind you, as plain as print. I've seen him. Jim, I'll give you a golden guinea for a noggin.
When I brought it to him, he seized it greedily and drank it out.
That's some better, sure enough. Now, matey, did that doctor say how long I was to lie here in this old berth?
Why, a week at least.
Oh, thunder, a week! I can't do that. They'll have the black spot on me by then. The lubbers is going about getting the wind of me this blessed moment. Lubbers couldn't keep what they got, and want to nail what's another's. It's in my old sea chest, Jim. The thing they're after. They'll tip me the black spot, I know it. I was first mate, I was. Old Flint's first mate. And I'm the only one as knows the place he buried it. He gave it me at Savannah when he lay a-dying.
What's the black spot, Captain?
A summons from old Flint's crew. A summons. And them as gets it, Jim, is lucky when they're dead.
So, a week went by. And then, about 3 o'clock of a bitter, foggy, frosty afternoon, I saw someone drawing slowly near along the road. He was plainly blind, for he tapped before him with a stick. And he wore a great green shade over his eyes and nose. And he was hunched as if with age or weakness, and wore a huge old tattered sea cloak with a hood.
Christian friends, take pity on a poor blind mariner as has lost the precious sight of his eyes in the gracious defense of his native country, England, and God bless King George, where or in what part of his country he may now be.
You were at the Admiral Benbow Inn, sailor. Black Hill Cove.
I hear a voice, a young voice. It's here where I miss me deadlights. Will you give me your hand, my kind young friend, and lead me into the captain?
I held out my hand, and the horrible, soft-spoken, eyeless creature gripped it in a moment like a vice.
No, boy. Take me into the captain.
Sir, upon my word, I dare not.
You heard me. Take me in straight.
Oh!
Will you take me into the captain?
Yes, sir.
Good. And when I'm in view, say to him, he's a friend for you, Bill Bones. If you don't, I'll twist your arm right out of your body. Do you hear?
Yes, sir.
Stash, you passer, damn you. Now, forward march.
Here's a friend for you, Bill Bones.
Now, Bill, sit where you are. Business is business. Hold out your left hand, Bill. Boy, take his left hand by the wrist and bring it near to my right. Here's a little bit of paper for you, Bill Bones. Now that's done, I'll be going. Goodbye, Bill. Goodbye.
Jim?
Yes, Captain?
What time is it, Jim?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, 6 hours. We'll gather 'em yet, Pew and Black Dog and Long John Silver. The whole crew of 'em will...
Captain. Captain. Captain! Captain!
The captain was dead. And there we were, my mother and I, a woman and a boy of 14, alone at night in the house, with the dead captain's body on the parlor floor.
Does. A whole year, never a penny from him. And me a poor widow.
But, Mother, if Black Dog comes back or the blind man...
Black Dog, fiddlesticks. There's something in that old chest of his upstairs that's rightfully mine. And we'll have that chest open if we die for it.
Mother.
Close the blinds, Jim. Don't want anybody watching us from the outside. We have to get the key off him.
Look, Mother. Look.
On the floor, close to the dead man's hand, there was a little round of paper, blackened on one side.
The black spot.
I took it up and found...
You have till 10 tonight. 4 hours.
Now, Jim, find that key.
I felt in his pockets one after another.
Perhaps it's round his neck. Get open your shirt.
There, sure enough, hanging on a bit of tarry string, we found the key. Then my mother got a candle in the bar, and holding each other's hands, we went upstairs to his room.
Give me the key, Jim. Now then. Oh, nothing in here. Not a thing of value, not a penny.
Mother, look.
There, before us, lay the last things in the chest, a bundle tied up in oilcloth looking like papers, and a canvas bag that gave forth at a touch the jingle of gold.
You see, Jim, I knew we'd find it. But I'll show these rogues that I'm an honest woman. I'll have me doing not a farthing over. Here, Jim, hold this bag.
The coins were of all countries and sizes, doubloons and louis d'or, and guineas and pieces of 8.
Mother. What is it, Jim? Mother, listen. Come, Mother. Mother, take the hold and let's be going.
No, I'll have to do, Jim, and no more.
But, Mother, you heard him. That was the blind man.
I know what I'm doing. I know the right.
But, Mother, you don't know.
Oh, dear. I'll take what I have.
And I'll take these papers. Quick, Mother, quick. Take my hand.
Next moment, we had opened the door and were in full retreat toward the village.
Look, Jim. Over the hill. There they come.
Run, Mother, run.
Oh, Jim. Jim, I'm going to faint. Oh, Jim. Take the money and go on.
Mother.
Oh.
Mother.
She had fainted. I managed somehow to drag her down the bank into the shadow of the ditch. A moment later, the house was surrounded.
Bones! Bones! Bill Bones! Will you answer me? Down with the door, then! In, you lovers! Loot the house and find it! Bill's dead! That's you! Bill's dead! That's him, you shirking lovers! And the rest of you locked and get the chest!
It was a good thing my mother had fainted, or she would have had to watch with me while our poor house was pulled apart and smashed. Whatever it was they were after, they did not find it.
Well, is it there? The money's there!
Jim, what are they after?
The map, Mother. Flint's map.
Right, you! That's the signal! Tell him that! Hold on, you sneaks! It's in the house, you know it is! Shiver my soul if I had me eye! The signal, too! The signal! You dogs! You had your hand on hundreds, on thousands! Are you giving up now? You'd be as rich as kings if you could find it, and you know it's there, and you stand there skulking. There wasn't one of you there, face Bill, and I did it. A blind man, and I'm to lose the chance for you. I'm to be a poor crawling beggar sponging for rum when I might be rolling in a couch. If you had the pluck of a weevil in a sea biscuit among the lot of you. That's the last signal. Get out! Get him in! Doc! Black dog! Johnny! Dirk! You won't leave old Pew, mate. Not old Pew. Johnny! Black dog! Don't leave old Pew. Not old Pew, not old dog. Pew, mate. Let me take it.
When they picked him up where he lay on the road on his side, Pew was stone dead. The horsemen, as it turned out, were revenue officers with some news of a strange lugger in Kit's Hole, and they set forth that night in our direction. They took my mother to a neighbor's house.
Well, Hawkins, they got the money, you say? Well, what in fortune were they after? More money, I suppose.
No, Sergeant. Not money, I think. In fact, sir, I believe I have the thing in my breast pocket. And to tell you the truth, I should like to put it in safety.
To be sure, boy, quite right. I'll take it.
I thought perhaps Dr. Livesey...
Yes, Dr. Livesey. Perfectly right, perfectly right. A gentleman and a magistrate. Doctor?
Yes, sir.
You have a good horse. Take this slide up behind you.
Yes, sir.
We rode hard all the way till we came to Dr. Livesey's door.
Dr. Livesey, the doctor's stopping tonight at the Squire's. Squire's? Oh, there we go, boys!
We'd arrived at the Squire's. He rose to meet us very stately and condescending.
Come in, gentlemen.
Good evening, Squire. Good evening, Dr. Livesey.
Good evening to you, friend Jim. What good wind brings you here?
Then the officer stood up straight and stiff and told his story.
Sergeant, you're a very noble fellow. This lad Hawkins is a trampiper thief. Hawkins, ring that bell. Sergeant must have the mail.
And so, Jim, you have the thing that they were after, have you?
Here it is, sir.
You've heard of this Captain Flint, Squire?
Heard of him? Heard of him, you say? He was the bloodthirstiest buccaneer that sailed. Blackbeard was a child to Flint. The Spaniards were so prodigiously afraid of him that I tell you, sir, I was sometimes proud he was an Englishman.
What the is, had he money?
Money! One of those villains after but money.
That we should soon know. What I want to know is this. Suppose I have here in my pocket some clue to where Flint buried his treasure. Does it amount to much?
Amount, sir? It will amount to this. If we have the clue you talk about, I fit out a ship in Bristol Dock and take you and Hawkins here along, and I'll have that treasure if I search a year, sir.
Very well. Now, if Jim is agreeable, we'll open the packet. A map of an island with latitude and longitude and writing. Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north of northeast. Skeleton Island, southeast by east feet. The bar silver is in the north cap.
James, you'll give up this wicked practice at once. Tomorrow, I start for Bristol. In 3 weeks' time, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 10 days, we'll have the best ship, sir, and the choicest crew in England. Hawkins shall come as cabin boy. You live as ship's doctor. I am admiral.
I'll go with you, Squire. So will Jim. And be a credit to the undertaking. There's only one man I'm afraid of.
Who's that? Name the dog, sir.
You, sir, for you cannot hold your tongue.
In a few moments, we shall be bound for Treasure Island with Dr. Livesey, Squire Trelawney, and Jim Hawkins. We pause now for station identification. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
WABC, New York.
Tonight, the Columbia Network is bringing you Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air in Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. As Jim Hawkins was telling us, we are eager to leave the Benbow Inn behind and set out for the docks in Bristol.
It was longer than the Squire imagined ere we were ready for the sea. Weeks passed on. Then, one fine day, there came a letter from the Squire. From Bristol.
Here, Livesey. The ship is port and fitted. Lies at anchor ready for sea. It was the crew that delayed me, till the most remarkable stroke of fortune brought me the very man that I required. I was standing on the dock, when by the merest accident I fell in talk with him. He had hobbled down there that morning with a parrot on his shoulder to get a smell of salt, he said. Out of pure pity, I engaged him on the spot to be ship's cook. Long John Silver, he is called, and has lost a leg. Well, sir, I thought I'd only found a cook, but it was a crew I'd discovered. Between Silver and myself, we got together in a few days a company of the toughest old salts imaginable. I declare we could fight the frigate. Seaman ho! Hang the treasure! It's the glory of the sea that has turned my head.
On the 16th of April, the schooner Hispaniola set sail from Bristol Harbor. It was more than 19 years ago, but I can remember it As if it were yesterday.
Me and my new blue cabin boys were
19 years ago.
leaning over the rail, waving goodbye to my mother, and doing my best not to cry. For at the last moment, it sort of hurt to leave her, and it was the first time I had been away from home. Then, a little before noon, Captain Smollett gave an order. The boatswain sounded his pipe, and the crew began to man the capstan bar. Soon, the anchor was short up. Soon it was hanging dripping at the bars. Soon the sail began to draw, and the land and shipping to flit by on either side. The Hispaniola had begun her voyage to the Isle of Treasure. On the second day out, I made the acquaintance of our one-legged ship's cook, Long John Silver.
Hey there, boy. Come in. Come on into Long John's galley.
To tell you the truth, at the very first mention of Long John Silver in the squire's letter, I had taken a fear in my mind that this might be the very one-legged sailor that I had watched for all those months at the Benbow Inn. But one look at him was enough. I had seen Captain Bones and Black Dog and Blind Pew, and I knew what a buccaneer looked like. Very different from this clean and pleasant-looking sea cook. His left leg was cut off close to the hip, and under the left shoulder he carried a crutch, which he managed wonderfully, hopping about on it like a bird. Are you Mr. Silver, sir?
Yes, me lad, such is my name to be sure. And you're Hawkins, eh? Nobody more welcome than yourself, me lad, in old John's galley. Sit down, hear the news. Your first trip to sea, Hawkins?
Yes, sir.
Well, there's a lot of things you're going to learn before this your voyage is over. What do you think, Hawkins? And if there's anything you want to know, Hawkins, you just come to old John Silver and ask him, see? He'll tell you.
His galley was as clean as a new pin. The dishes hanging up burnished, and his parrot in a cage in one corner.
Here's Captain Flint. I call my parrot Captain Flint. Yeah, the parrot after the famous buccaneer. Yes, Captain Flint, predicting success to our voyage. Wasn't you, Captain? Yeah, she's a powerful old bird, is Captain Flint. 200 years old if she's a day, and if anybody's seen more wickedness, it must be the devil himself. She sailed with England, the great Captain England, the pirate, on the old Walrus, Flint's old ship. But I've seen her muck with the red blood and fit to sink with gold. She's been at Madagascar and at Malabar and Suriname and Providence and Portobello. To look at her, you'd think she was a baby, Hawkins, but you smell powder, haven't you, Captain?
Stand by to go back.
And blood, eh, Captain?
Order amidship. Animal hands.
And pieces of eight, eh, Captain?
Pieces of eight. Pieces of eight. Pieces of eight. Pieces of eight. Pieces of eight.
At the end of the third week, we left Madeira behind us. The ship proved to be a good ship. The crew seemed to be capable seamen. There was only one man aboard who was not satisfied, and that was the ship's master, Captain Smollett.
I'll speak plain. I don't like it. I don't like this cruise. I don't like the men. I don't like me officers. That's short and sweet.
But nobody paid much attention to him. Every man on board seemed well content. Double grog was served on the least excuse. There was duff on odd days, and always a barrel of apples standing broached in the waist, for anyone to help himself that had a fancy.
Never knew good come of it yet. Spoil folks' lands, make devils. That's my belief. We're not home again yet.
But good did come of that apple barrel. It was about the last day of our outward voyage. Sometime that night, or at latest before noon of the morrow, we should sight the Treasure Island. Just after sundown, when all my work was over, I thought I should like an apple. I ran on deck. The watch was all forward, looking out for the island. I got into the apple barrel. Suddenly, I heard voices on deck.
Look here, Barbecue. How long are we going to stand off and on like a blessed bumboat? By thunder, I want to go into that cabin, I do. I want their pickles and wine and their...
How long? By the powers, the last moment I can manage, and that's how long. How many tall ships, think you, have I seen laid aboard? And how many brisk lads drying in the sun at Execution Dock? And all for this same hurry, and hurry, and hurry. He's a first-rate seaman, Captain Smollett. Sails the blessed ship for us.
They're all seamen aboard here, I should
All forecastle hands, you mean? I know the sort you are. You're never happy till you're drunk.
think. It's your luck, John.
I don't know what his treasure is, do I?
No more to use as you, and here's this squire and doctor with a map and such. Well, then I mean this squire and doctor shall find the treasure for us and help us to get it aboard by the powers. After that...
After that, what do we do with them, John Silver, after that?
Well, what would you think we does with them? Put them ashore like maroons? Or cut them down like that much pork? Duty is duty, mate. Wait. Wait is what I says. When the time comes, why, let her rip.
Land ho! What's that? What's that? Land
Away to the southwest of us, we saw it. Treasure Island. 10 minutes later, we were gathered in the cabin. The squire, Dr. Livesey, the captain, and myself.
Now, Hawkins, you have something to say. Speak up.
I did as I was bid. I told them the whole story of Silver's conversation. When that was done, all three, one after another, and each with a bow, drank my good health. Then the squire rose.
Captain Smollett, you were right and I was wrong. I own myself an ass. I await your orders, sir.
Silver is a remarkable man. Here's the way I see it. We must go on because we can't turn back. And what I propose is that we don't wait for them to surprise us, but that we come to blows at our own time and when they least expect it. There must be some faithful hands left. Well, we must find out who they are.
Jim Sher can help us more than anyone. The men are not shy with him, and Jim is a noticing lad.
Hawkins, I put prodigious faith in you.
In the meantime, talk as we please, there were only 7 out of 26 on whom we knew we could rely. And of these 7, I was a boy, so that the grown men on our side were 6 to their 19. Next morning, there was not a breath of air moving, nor a sound, but that of the surf booming half a mile away along the beaches. A peculiar stagnant smell hung over the anchorage. The heat was sweltering, and the men grumbled fiercely over their work. Mutiny, it was plain, hung over us like a thundercloud. Around noon, Captain Smollett came up on deck.
Hey, lads! We're all damned, we're all trying another sort. Quick on the shore and let nobody. So you can take the gig. As many as please may go ashore for the afternoon. Hey, wait a bit, man. What's the hurry?
John Silver suspected a trick.
Wait a bit, man.
He hopped around the deck on his one leg.
Wait a bit, will you, man?
Soon the party was organized. 6 fellows were to stay on board, and 13, including Silver, began to embark. Suddenly, I had a mad notion to go ashore, too. In a jiffy, I had slipped over the side and curled up in the foresheets of the nearest boat. No one took notice of me. The crews raced for the beach. No sooner had we touched shore than I leaped out and plunged into the nearest thicket. Behind me, I could hear John Silver's voice.
Hey, Jim! Jim, my boy! Hey, Jim! Jim!
John Silver was quick at his work. 2 faithful members of the crew were murdered on the island that afternoon. Only an hour after we landed. The second killing I saw with my own eyes. From where I lay hidden among the trees.
Will you tell me you let yourself be led away with that kind of a mess of swamps?
As sure as God sees me, I'd sooner lose me hand than turn to give me duty.
Mate, it's because I think's gold dust of you. Gold dust.
John Silver, you're mate of mine no more. If I die like a dog, I'll die in me duty. You've killed Allen, have you? Kill me too if you can. But I defy you.
He started to walk away.
Try this, then.
Long John whipped the crutch out of his armpit and sent it hurtling through the air. It struck him in the back and killed him. Then Silver brought out a whistle. I didn't wait. I ran. I ran as I never ran before.
Daddy!
I looked up the side of a hill. Far above me, I saw something leap behind the trunk of a tree. It seemed dark and shaggy. I turned and began to run. Suddenly, the thing appeared in front of me, and running forward, threw itself on its knees before me, and held out its clasped hands in supplication. Who are you?
I'm poor Ben Gunn, I am. I haven't smoked with Christian these 3 years.
3 years? Were you shipwrecked?
No, mate, maroon. 3 years. Lived on goats since then, and berries and oysters. Made my heart is sore for Christian diet. You mightn't happen to have a piece of cheese about you now? No? Well, many's a night I've dreamed of cheese, toasted mostly, and woke up again, and here I was. What'd you call yourself, mate?
Jim.
Jim? Jim. Yeah. Well, now, Jim, you wouldn't think I was rich to look at me, would you now?
Why, no, not in particular.
Oh, well, but I am, Jim. I'm rich, powerful rich. Oh, Jim, you'll bless your stars, you will. You was the first that found me.
Suddenly his eye fell on the Hispaniola lying far below us. Between it and the land was the jolly boat, with 5 men moving toward shore. But I could not tell if they were our men or the mutineers.
Jim, tell me true. That ain't Flint's ship?
It's not Flint's ship, and Flint is dead. There are some of Flint's hands aboard, worse luck for the rest of us.
Not a man with one leg?
Silver?
Woo! If you were sent for Long John... Oh! I'm as good as pork, I know it. I was in Flint's ship with John Silver when old Flint buried the treasure. He and 6 along, 6 strong seamen. They was ashore nigh on a week. And then one day here come Flint by himself in a little boat, and the 6 all dead. Dead and buried along with the treasure. How he done it, not a man of us could make out.
I told him the purpose of our voyage, and the predicament in which we now found ourselves.
Oh, that Long John, he's a bad un. And you're all in a clove hitch, ain't you? Well, you just put your trust in Ben Gunn. Ben Gunn's the man to help you. You tell that to your squire, Jim. Ben Gunn's the man, that's what you say. And Ben Gunn says you has ideas of his own. Ah! Look at that.
Far below us, we saw a Union Jack fluttering in the air above the woods.
There's your friend, sure enough.
More likely it's mutineers.
No, mate, Silver Fly, the Jolly Roger. That's your friend, sure enough, ashore in the old stockade made years and years ago by Flint. Woo! What's that?
That's the ship's cannon. They're shooting at the stockade. Come on.
Wait a minute, Jim. Wait. Ben Gunn is spy. Rum wouldn't bring me down there. But remember, Jim, Ben Gunn's the man to help you. And when Ben Gunn is wanted, you knows where to find him. Just where you found him today.
I started to run towards the flag.
Hey, Jim! Jim!
Yes, sir?
Yeah, you won't forget that piece of cheese, will you, mate?
It was less than a mile to the stockade. It was heavy running through the woods. The shooting was getting louder. Suddenly before me, I saw a clearing. The smoke of muskets fired nearby. Hey there!
Go, sir!
Hey! Don't shoot, it's me!
Who's this?
Me! Jim Hawkins!
It's Jim!
A moment later, I was over the stockade among my friends. And soon afterwards, the firing ceased. The mutineers were saving their powder. The stockade was a good place, with a paling 6 feet high all around it. We could have held it against the regiment. And here Captain Smollett decided to stay and await our enemy's next move. I told Dr. Livesey and the squire about Ben Gunn.
Hey! Flag a truce! Flag a truce!
Who's that? Silver. Keep indoors, man. 10 to 1, this is a trick. Who goes? Stand or we fire.
Flag a truce!
Doctors, watch on the lookout. Dr. Livesey, take the north side if you please. Jim, the east. Gray, west. The watch below, all hands to load muskets. Lively men, and careful. What do you want with your flag of truce?
Captain Silver, sir! Come to my term! Captain Silver? Why, you black-hearted scoundrel!
Silence, sir! Silence. If you wish to talk to me, you can come, and that's all. If there's any treachery, it'll be on your side, and the Lord help you.
That's enough, Captain. A word from you's enough. I know a gentleman, and you may lay to that.
You'd better sit down.
You ain't gonna let me inside, Captain? It's a main cold morning, to be sure, sir, to sit outside upon the sand. Oh, there's Jim. Top of the morning to you, Jim. Well, there you're all together like a happy family in a manner of speaking.
If you've anything to say, my man, better say it.
Right you were, Captain Smollett. Duty is duty, to be sure. Well, here it is. We want that treasure. We'll have it. That's our point. You just soon save your lives, I reckon, and that's yours. You have a chart, haven't you?
That's as may be.
Oh, well, you have. I know that. What I mean is, we want your chart. You give us the chart to get the treasure by, and I'll give you my affidavit upon my word of honor to clap you somewhere safe ashore.
Is that all you have to say?
Every last word, by thunder. Refuse that, and you've seen the last of me but musket balls.
Very good. Now you'll hear me. If you'll come up one by one, unarmed, I'll engage to clap you all in irons and take you home to a fair trial in England. If you won't, as my name's Alexander Smollett, I've flown my sovereign's colors, and I'll see you all to Davy Jones. You can't find the treasure. You can't sail the ship. And you can't fight us. I stand here and tell you so. And at the last good word you'll get from me. Now, fruit me, lad.
Laugh! Laugh, by thunder, laugh! For an hour doubt, you'll laugh on the other side. Then the die will be the lucky ones.
10 minutes later, nothing remained of the attacking party but the 5 who had fallen. 4 on the inside and 1 on the outside of the palisade. The mutineers did not come back that night. They had got their rations, as the captain put it. The next day was stifling hot. After dinner, Dr. Livesey sent for me.
Jim, was it cheese you said Ben Gunn had a fancy for?
Yes, sir, cheese.
Well, Jim, just see the good that comes of being dainty in your food. You've seen my snuff box, haven't you? And you never saw me take snuff. The reason being that in my snuff box I carry a piece of Parmesan cheese. A cheese made in Italy, very nutritious. Well, that's for Ben Gunn. Oh, goodbye, my lad.
Then he took up his hat and pistols, girt on his cutlass, put the chart in his pocket, and set off briskly through the trees. That afternoon, the blockhouse being stifling hot, and the little patch of sand inside the palisade ablaze with midday sun, and so much blood about me, and so many poor dead bodies lying around, a new idea came into my head. This was to swim out under cover of the night, cut the Hispaniola adrift, and let her go ashore where she fancied. The mutineers, after their repulse of the morning, had nothing nearer their hearts than to up anchor and away to sea. This I thought would be a fine thing to prevent. It was evening when I reached the east coast of the island. I could see the Hispaniola lying at anchor offshore, and there was the Jolly Roger, the black flag of piracy, flying from her peak. As the last rays of daylight dwindled and disappeared, absolute darkness settled down on Treasure Island. The next night I was back on land. I was proud of myself, and with good reason. I had grounded the Hispaniola, beached her up tidily in the North Inlet with no harm done, safe from the mutineers. I had no trouble finding the stockade. Coming in from the shore, keeping close in shadow where the darkness was thickest, I crept into the blockhouse. I could see nothing. The doctor and the squire must have worried about me. I should lie down in my own place, I thought, and enjoy their faces when they found me in the morning. I felt for a place to lie down.
Pieces of eight! Pieces of eight!
Now go!
Pieces of eight!
Now go! Bring a torch, Dick. Well, shiver my timbers. Jim Hawkins. Dropped in like, eh? Quite a pleasant surprise for poor old John. I've always liked you, I have, Jim, for a lad of spirit. I picked him my own self when I was young and handsome. Always wanted you to join my camp and take your share and die a gentleman, and now, my cock, you've got to. You can't go back to your own lot.
Where are they?
Where do you think, my son?
Have you killed them?
What do you think?
Well, I'm not such a fool, but I know pretty well what I have to look for. But there's a thing or two I have to tell you. And the first is this. here you are in a bad way. Ship lost, treasure lost, men lost. And if you want to know who did it, it was I. I was in the apple barrel the night we sighted land. And I heard you, John, and you, Dick Johnson, and Hans, who is now at the bottom of the sea, and told every word you said before the hour was out. And as for the schooner, it was I who cut her cable. And it was I who brought her where you'll never see her more, not one of you. I no more fear you than I fear a fly.
I put one to that and here goes, you sneaking son of a skunk. So would I. Master! Who are you, Tom Morgan? Maybe you thought you was captains here, perhaps.
Only that I killed the boy.
Did any of you gentlemen want to have it out with me? Him that wants it shall get it. You won't fight him by thunder, you'll obey. You may lay to it. I like that boy now. Never seen a better boy than that. He's more a man than any para-ratty in this here house. What I say is this, let me see him that'll lay a hand on him, that's what I say. And you may lay to it. Seem to have a lot to say. Pipe up and let me hear it, or lay to.
John,
What?
we got something for you, John.
Step up, I won't bite you. Hand it over, lubber. The black spot. What's on it? Deposed. Deposed, that's it, is it? Very pretty wrote, to be sure. Like print, I swear. But it ain't one bit prettier wrote than this. What's that? And what does it look like, lads? A chart, that's what it is, a chart. A chart of this island, old Flint's chart. Now, what do you say to that?
Yes, that's Flint, sure enough. That's it.
J.F. and a clothage to it. So he done ever.
Silver's the man.
Silver.
John Silver, Captain Lane.
Barbecue forever.
Barbecue for Captain.
John Silver, the
That was the end of the night's business. Only much later, I woke up suddenly and felt someone beside me.
Jim. Jim, my boy.
Yes, Long John?
I saved your life here tonight, Jim. Now, you and me stick close, Jim, back to back like in case of trouble. And talking of trouble, Jim, why did those friends of yours leave that chart behind when they cleared out of here? They did, though. I came in here this morning and found the place empty and the chart lying there on the table where I couldn't miss it. And there's something under that. Something under that. Good or bad.
The next morning, we set out after the treasure.
Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north and northeast. Skeleton Island, east, southeast, and by east, 10 east.
Hey, over there! Come quick!
At the foot of a pine, half covered with green creeper, a human skeleton lay on the ground.
A skeleton, by God!
It lay perfectly straight, the feet pointing in one direction, the hands raised above its head like a diver's, pointing directly in the opposite.
It ain't natural. It ain't natural, but you know, lads, I've a notion in my old numbskull now. Here's the compass. There's the tip-top point of Skeleton Island sticking out like a tooth. Just take a bearing, will you, along the line of them bones?
East, southeast, and by...
I thought so. There's the pointer. Right up there's our line for the Pole Star and the Jolly Dollars. This is one of Flint's jokes, and no mistake. Him and these 6 was alone here. Alone. He killed them. Every man. And this one yawled up here and laid down by the compass. Yes. 6 they were, and 6 we are. And Bones is what they are now.
I saw him dead, old Flint. There he laid with penny pieces on his eyes.
Dead, aye, sure enough he's dead. But if ever spirit walked, it'd be Flint's. Dear heart, but he died bad, did Flint.
Oh, that he did.
May not it were. And the windy was open, and I hear that old song of his coming out clear as hell. And the death hold on man already. Listen.
Do you hear what I hear?
Flint again. Old Flint.
Oh, Lord.
It was his last words. Oh, Flint's last words about board.
Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. Shipmates! Shipmates! That's 750,000 pound, not a quarter of a mile from here. When did a gentleman of fortune show his star under that much dollars for a boozy old seaman with a blue mug? And him dead, too.
Hello there, John. Don't you cross his spirit.
Billet? Well, maybe. You know whose voice that was? It was like a somebody else's. It was like a... By the powers! Ben Gunn! Aye. So it were. Ben Gunn it were.
Why, nobody minds Ben Gunn. Dead or alive, nobody minds him.
Spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north-east Skeleton Island, southeast and by east. 10 feet.
Hey, mate, here's the tall tree!
The first of the tall trees was reached, and by bearing proved the wrong one. So did the second. So the third.
Here it is! Aye! On God! Betty! Here it is!
Before us was a great excavation. In this was the shaft of a pick broken in two, and the boards of several packing cases strewn around, all branded with the name Walrus, the name of Flint's ship. The treasure had been found and rifled. The 700,000 pounds were gone. We turned and saw above us on the edge of the pit Ben Gunn, Dr. Livesey, Gray, and the squire, all with muskets. The doctor's plan had worked. The pirates had fallen into his trap.
Silver, you're a prodigious villain and an impostor, sir. But you saved this boy's life, and I'll not prosecute you. But the dead men, sir, hang about your neck like millstones.
Thank you kindly, sir.
I dare you to thank me. It's a gross dereliction of my duty. Stand back!
It took us 3 days to move the treasure from Ben Gunn's cave on board ship. On the 8th day of December, the Hispaniola reached Bristol. 5 men only of those who had sailed returned with her.
Well, that was 19 years ago. All of us had an ample share of the treasure and used it, wisely or foolishly according to our natures. Captain Smollett had now retired from the sea. As for Ben Gunn, he got 1,000 pounds, which he spent or lost in 19 days, for he was back begging on the 20th. Silver vanished on the voyage one night off the coast of Mexico, and we heard no more of him. The bar Silver and the arms still lie, for all I know, where Flint buried them. And certainly they shall lie there for all of me. Oxen and wain ropes would not bring me back again to that accursed island. The worst dreams that ever I have are when I hear the surf booming about its coast or start upright in bed, with the sharp voice of Captain Flint still ringing in my ears.
Pieces of eight! 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 Pieces of eight!
You have been listening to Treasure Island, starring Orson Welles as Long John Silver in his own radio version of Stevenson's great adventure story. This is the second in a series of 9 special broadcasts presented by the Mercury Theater. And here is Orson Welles himself, writer, director, and star of these programs, to tell you about next week's production. Orson Welles.
First of all, I'd like you to meet Jim Hawkins, Jr. Our leading man is 14 years old. Last season, he made a really startling contribution to the stage history of Shakespeare's plays. This was during the course of some experiments with the Mercury Theater sprinkler system. As a consequence of what must certainly have been extensive research in that field, he caused it to rain, actually to rain, and copiously to rain, where in more than 300 years it has never rained in Julia Caesar before. rained on Brutus. It rained all over Brutus. In the forum, I was Brutus, and I ought to know. Now, as dramatic criticism, I found this telling and even final. There's a surprise item in the funeral scene. I can assure you that the unexpected appearance on the stage of so many gallons of real water created in us all an impression that was almost overwhelming. Our popular leading man says that he did it all with a match. I don't dare think what he'll do. He's old enough to run for president. But meanwhile, no matter what happens to the plumbing, he can always work for the Mercury. As you've probably discovered, he's something more than a very gifted performer. And as I told you, he's something less than 15. His name shall not be withheld. I refer to that fine old actor, Arthur Anderson. Mr. Anderson is not new to the microphone nor the Mercury. He was prominent in Shoemaker's Holiday and in Julius Caesar as Brutus's boy Jeeves, the sleepy-eyed, silver-throated Lucius in brass buttons. He was at least unforgettable. As to our celebrated Mark Antony, George Coulouris, who has always somehow cleverly escaped Rainmaker Anderson, he played Captain Smollett tonight. Eustace Wyatt, late housebreaker of Heartbreak House, was the squire. Ray Collins is responsible for Ben Gunn, among other things. And that was Alfred Shirley as Blind Pew. Then you heard Stephen Fox and Agnes guess what she played, Moorhead, and a Mercury roundup, William Allen and Richard Wilson inclusive. Jim Hawkins Sr. will bear no comment. Next week, we offer you the ominous and authentic click of the world's most famous knitting needles. Madame Lafarge's needles and Madame herself, Dr. Manette, Sidney Carton, and the entire French Revolution, same time, same station. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I've ever done. Charles Dickens, that is correct. That is absolutely correct. Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. There is at this moment a disturbance in the sub-control room, and if it isn't a tumbrel, it's Arthur Anderson. It's a good thing the program's over. Good night, everybody. Thanks. Please write me the stories you'd like to hear. And goodbye till next week.
Remember, 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time next Monday night for the Mercury Theater on the Air with A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. On tonight's production, Bernard Herrmann composed the original music and conducted, and Davidson Taylor supervised for the Columbia Network. Dan Seymour speaking. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
The Champagne of Ginger Ales presents a series of programs to advertise the new made-to-order Canada Dry, which you can now buy by the glass at drugstores and soda fountains. This series will feature George Olson and his music, Miss Ethel Chute, the star of many Broadway successes, and that suave comedian, dry humorist, and famous master of ceremonies, Jack Benny.
Thank you, Mr. Thorgerson. That's pretty good from a man who doesn't even know me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jack Benny talking and making my first appearance on the air professionally. By that I mean I'm finally getting paid, which, of course, will be a great relief to my creditors. I really don't know why I'm here. I'm supposed to be a sort of a master of ceremonies and tell you all the things that will happen, which would happen anyway. I must introduce the different artists who could easily introduce themselves, and also talk about the Canada Dry made to order by the glass, which is a waste of time, as you know all about it. You drink it, like it, and don't want to hear about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, a master of ceremonies is really a fellow who is unemployed and gets paid for it. I think you will like the entertainment arranged for tonight, I hope. Of course, I haven't seen any of the program myself, but I've spoken to the artists individually. They seem to think it's awfully good. The first number will be a selection by George Olson and his orchestra. I think this being our first program together, it is no more than fair that I have you meet Mr. Olson personally. He's really a very charming fellow and one of the few directors who comes to and from his work on roller skates. That's perhaps the silliest thing that I'll say all night, I think. I might add that Mr. Olson is very, very handsome. I told you, George, I'd get that in. But as long as we are both on the air, of course, I won't have to worry about that. Oh, George, come here. I want you to say hello to the folks. Hello, everybody. That was George Olson, ladies and gentlemen. He rehearsed that speech all week. You know, this is really all play with George. He doesn't have to work at all. I might say that Mr. Olson is one of the wealthiest conductors in America. You know what I mean. He owns his own car. Of course, the other boys are in debt, too. George, what kind of a car have you? A Saxon. A what? A Saxon. A Saxon, huh? Well, that was my fault for bringing it up, that's all. Is it a new one, is it? Oh, yes, a very late model. I see. Well, you must have been in this country a long time now, haven't you, George? Yeah, say, by the way, Jack, what kind of a car have you? Me? I have a bicycle built for two. I mean, now, you can't go back any further than that, have you? Well, George, I think we ought to get started. What's the first number? I beg your pardon, mademoiselle. It's a French number, Jack. Do you like French numbers? Do I? Mon duck, mon duck. Your pardon, mademoiselle, step in the garden, mademoiselle. I'd like to tell you, mademoiselle, you're wonderful, you're marvelous, in other words, you're swell, it's lovely weather, mademoiselle. Let's get together, mademoiselle, you know I love you, but if you don't parlez-vous, I beg your pardon, mademoiselle. That was swell. And I don't know, you look so important directing that orchestra, you know, with the baton in your hand. I don't know, there's something about all you fellas when you stand there waving that stick in the air. It's thrilling, you know. One thing I'd like to know, George, if the band didn't show up, what would you do with that stick? Why, I'd throw it away and do what you're doing. Always kidding. And now, ladies and gentlemen, may I present a young lady who is a star of many New York productions, Miss Ethel Chate. You will remember Miss Chate best in Whoopi playing opposite Eddie Cantor. Is it all right for me to mention Cantor's name here? Everybody else does. Ethel, come over and say hello.
Oh, hello.
Wasn't that clever? Oh, she does a lot of things like that. You'd be surprised. And Miss Chate is going to sing for us. She has a beautiful voice, too. She has a sort of a nervous soprano. You know what I mean? In fact, last week she had her nose lifted so she could be heard in Philadelphia. And, oh, by the way, here's a little news for you. Might interest you. Miss Chate is really Mrs. George Olson. Although I wouldn't go as far as to say that that's the reason she happens to be on this program. Nevertheless, she's Mrs. George Olson. Such a nice girl, too. I'm surprised that she's married to Olson. And now, Mr. Chate will sing, I Found $1 Million Baby. I still feel a little Frenchy tonight, Ethel, so it's mon duck to you, too.
Love comes along like a popular song, anytime or anywhere at all.
Rain or sunshine, spring or fall.
You never know when it's going to say hello in a very unexpected place.
For example, take your case.
It was a lucky April shower. It was the most convenient door.
He found $1 million baby in a 5 and 10 cent store.
The rain continued for an hour. I hung around for 3 or 4.
Hung around $1 million baby in a 5 and 10 cent store.
She was selling china when she made those eyes.
He's a fine China until my breath got wine.
And incidentally, if you should run into a shower,
you step aside a cottage door and meet the $1 million baby from the 5 and 10 cent store. I met $1 million baby in a 5 and 10 cent store. I love my $1 million baby from the 5 and 10 cent store.
She was selling china
on the night. You tried the teapot, looking overside, took a boat and teapot. And then the crowd got wild. And incidentally, if you would spend a happy hour, just step inside a cottage door and meet our $1 million baby.
maybe 1,
Maybe 2,
maybe 3,
maybe 4, and they're not from the 10-cent store.
What a charming couple. And, folks, I forgot to mention that Mr. Tay was assisted by Fran Fry. Of course, I'm lucky that I remember anything tonight. You know, folks, all the time Mr. Tay was singing, I kept thinking of my girl. You know, I get so sentimental. I really have a girl. She lives in Newark, New Jersey. You know, the girl I go with when I'm in Newark? She's not what you call good-looking exactly. In fact, she's quite homely, but then she can't stay in the house all the time. I imagine you folks have seen her pictures in different magazines. You know, she poses for the beauty ads entitled Before Taking. And she comes from a very fine family, although her father very often partakes of the forbidden beverage. It's all right for me to mention that, as they have no radio. In fact, her father drank everything in the United States and then went up north to drink Canada Dry. Boy, I'm glad I thought of that, Joe. You know, the one about Canada Dry? I'm really supposed to mention it occasionally. After all, I owe it to my sponsors, and they might be listening in. Seriously, though, do you realize, folks, that if you want a drink of Canada Dry, well, say just a glass, you don't have to buy it in the bottle. You can walk into any drugstore or soda fountain that has that big sign, Canada Dry, made to order, ask for a glass and get it. I know you always have it in your home in bottles, but isn't it nice to know that you don't have to wait until you get home to drink it? Gee, I thought I did that pretty well for a new salesman, eh? I suppose nobody will drink it now. And now, folks, a very stirring number called I Love a Parade with a vocal refrain by the Messrs. Fran Fry, Bobby Borger, and Bob Wright.
a parade. When I hear a band, I just want to stand and cheer as they come. The sound of a drill will give me a thrill. I thrill at the skill of anything military. I love a parade. A handful of vets, a line of cadets, or any brigade. I love a parade. I love to see the boys in blue and hear their heavy tread. I used to love that Navy band with Sousa at its head. I love a stirring war parade, but best of all I feel the biggest thrill when college boys come marching down the field.
That was I Love a Parade, ladies and gentlemen. The kind of a number that grips and thrills you, gives you that great feeling of patriotism, and makes you glad that you're an American. Personally, it didn't bother me very much because I took a nap while the boys were playing it. Now, folks, in case you've forgotten, this is Jack Benny again. You know, the Canada Dry humorist. Hey, I thought that was good. The Canada Dry humorist. I made that up myself, huh? It sounds like it. That witty retort was by George Olson, ladies and gentlemen, proving again that he is still an orchestra leader. At that, George has a great sense of humor. So he told me a story the other day. Do you mind if I tell it, George? I'll give you credit for it, you know. It's really supposed to be true, too. It's about George's uncle, who had been ill for a long time. He had what you call labor poisoning. You know what I mean? He just couldn't stand working. So his doctor finally told him that he would have to get a lot of fresh air, do outside work, but not lift anything heavy. He told him that at no time was he to lift anything heavy. So his uncle got a job as a garbage man in Scotland. Funny, I never heard that one before, but the thing that kills me is Olson telling a Scotch story. I mean, because George, you know, is no spendthrift himself. In fact, he invited me to dinner the other night, much to his own surprise, and he paid the check with a $5 bill that was in his pocket so long that Lincoln's eyes were bloodshot. That's a fact. However, he will now favor us with that very popular song hit called Paradise. After all, why should his orchestra be an exception?
speaking. By this time, I know you're thoroughly bored listening to Jack Denver, our master of ceremonies and his alleged Canada Dry humor and telling you all about made-to-order Canada Dry. We also have a product to sell. It's music. And may we show you now just how we make music. Listen, everyone, we're going to show you how we all make music. Now, first there's Wally. He sure plays some with two little sticks he beats on his drum. And that's how we make music. Now we have the boys with their violin. Their bows go back and forth when they beat in. And the drums. Now the trumpets play loud and shrill, but when they get going, they'll give you a thrill. And the violin and the drums. The old trombone flies up and down. When he gets hot, he goes to town. And the trumpet, the violin, and the drums. When we want to shiver a quiver or a groan, we call upon the boys with the saxophone. And the trombone, and the trumpet, and the violin, and the drums. Please, please, now, when we want some rhythm, where do we go? Why, it's old Bob Wright with his old banjo. And the saxophone, and the trombone, the trumpet, the violin, and the drums. Oh, the cow is now a little birdie. All right, Now, the next old fella can't be beat. You know him well. It's Piccolo Pete. And the banjo, and the saxophone, the trombone, the trumpet, the violin, and the drum. Okay, Ben Burney, if you like it. That's it. Now we have the piano for cadences and such. All he needs is a very light touch. And the piccolo, and the banjo, and the saxophone, and the trombone, and the trumpet, and the violin, and the drum. So are you, so are you. Now the old bass fiddle plays way down low. He has to get a derrick to move his bow. And the piano, and the piccolo, and the banjo, and the saxophone, and the trombone, the trumpet, the violin, and the drum. Hey, please. Bass, piano, piccolo, banjo, saxophone, trombone, trumpet, violin. Now that's how we make music.
That was cute, George. I mean, babies will like it anyway, I think. And, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the way these boys make music. Now, if they could only play it. Mr. Olson will now play Come West, Little Girl, Come West. And I'm supposed to sing a chorus of this number. And do you know, folks, that 6 months ago, I couldn't sing a note. Really, I could not sing a note. But after taking 3 glasses every day of Canada Dry made-to-order ginger ale, I still am unable to sing and can't even sign a note. So the moral of this is drink that champagne of ginger ale, Canada Dry, and don't worry about signing notes. So for want of a better soloist, Miss Chute will sing, Come West, Little Girl, Come West. I'm going east.
I love to hear a cowboy sing like a cowboy sings when it's blue. Round the campfire on the range when his daily work is through. If I could hear a certain love song, what memories it would bring. I can't forget that love song the cowboys used to sing. The sun will set, the moon will rise, but I wanna look in my baby's eyes. Come west, little girl, come west. The breeze will blow, the stars will peep, but I'm too lonesome to go to sleep. Come west, little girl, come west. but I rest best in my baby's arms. Come west, little girl, come west. The sun will set, the moon will rise, but I can look in my baby's eyes. Come west, little girl, come west. The breeze will blow, the stars will beam, but I'm too lonesome to go to sleep. Come west, little girl, come west. So don't be pining away, way down east. You know my love here for you will increase. Along the way, it's full of charm, but I rest best in my baby's arms. Come west, little girl.
Hello, everybody. This is Kate Smith, or Jack Benny talking. I'm here. See how nervous I am? I mean, not so much because I'm broadcasting, but I think all my relatives are listening in, and I don't want them to know that I'm working. Although I have an older brother that I'm quite fond of. I mean, we get along great. We sort of share everything together. I mean, what's mine is his, and what's his is his. You know, although this has absolutely nothing to do with Canada Dry made to order. I keep getting entirely off the subject. But don't forget, folks, that you can walk into your neighborhood drugstore, or any drugstore. I mean, after all, I don't care what drugstore you walk into. I'm just the master of ceremonies here, that's all. I mean, if I'm going to have to worry about things like that, you know, I'll have my hands full. But go into any drugstore and order a glass, mind you. Not a bottle, but a glass of made-to-order Canada Dry ginger ale, and stagger out. Isn't it funny, the things you can buy today in the drugstore? I went in for an aspirin the other day and came out with a new hat. I imagine the next number will be by George Olson. He's about to make his first appearance on this program. In fact, I'm lucky to get in here at all. This is called Drums in My Heart. And boys, try and finish this all together if you can. Please. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the last number on our first program on the 2nd of May. Are you sleeping? I hope you'll be with us again Wednesday. In fact, I hope I'll be here Wednesday. George, though, we all hope that we'll be here Wednesday. Well, good night, then.
All aboard. Away we go. Get that little lady on the train, boys. All aboard.
Did these things, we dedicate this program, The Dam Busters, presented by the author himself, Paul Brickhill, dramatized by Morris West, an Australasian radio production.
Good evening. This is Paul Brickhill. Cheshire had been pondering some new marking ideas. Remembering Martin's experiences at Anteor and his own difficulties in later raids, it seemed to him that Lancasters were too big and clumsy for marking. Too big a target for the flak, and too clumsy for maneuvering low over pinpoint targets.
I had your memo, Cheshire. It interests me very much. It happens to coincide with a few ideas of my own.
You're in agreement with low-level marking, then?
If it can be done economically, yes.
Then, well, I've got something to add to those memos, sir. Why not let us do our own marking? With our own mosquitoes?
That's not very far away from my own thoughts, Cheshire.
I'm glad to hear that, sir. You see, if we could get a batch of mosquitoes allotted to 617, we could train some of the boys in marking technique and not be dependent on pathfinders.
Yes, if we could do that, I'd feel much happier about low-level technique. There is a problem, of course.
What's that, sir?
We've got to get the mosquitoes first.
Well, that should be simple enough. We don't want many.
My dear chap, I'm afraid you haven't the faintest idea of what goes on in the high levels of the service. All the mosquitoes that are coming off the production lines have been earmarked for months ahead by the Pathfinders, light bomber groups, intruders, and all sorts of other informations. And even they're squabbling about them.
But damn it all, sir, 617's not just an ordinary bomber squadron.
My dear chap, some of our big brass regard every squadron as a number and nothing else. I know it's crazy, but that's the way it goes. And when you get into conference on a matter of dispute like this, every formation commander is crowing at the top of his voice to tell the Air Ministry that his is the biggest dunghill of the lot.
Well, have you talked to Air Chief Marshal Harris, sir?
Yes, I have. He's not unsympathetic, which is a lot to say for Bert, but he's a thorny character to deal with, and it takes a long time to get him moving on a new project.
Would it help if we could lay some proof in his lap?
It would help a hell of a lot. What do you suggest?
Look here, sir. If you could get your hands on even 2 mosquitoes, beg, borrow, or steal them, then we could plan a couple of operations and really have something to show Harris.
Yes, I see the point, but even to get 2 of those blasted things will take a few weeks' work. However, leave it to me. I'll wangle it somehow. Meantime, I've got another job for you.
What's that, sir?
There's an explosives factory at Bergerac in Gascony. It's on the banks of the Dordogne. It's not a difficult target, but it's well defended.
Low level again?
Definitely not. And I mean it this time, Cheshire. I don't want you to risk good crews until we get our mosquitoes. And then you'll have to risk them. Is that understood?
Yes, sir. We'll stick to that. When do we go?
If the weather holds, tomorrow night.
Met reports indicate that the weather will hold tonight, so we're going out. We take off at 21:30. Check your watches.
Right.
1800 hours in 10 seconds from... No.
Check. Right.
Right. Now, for reasons which I'm not at liberty to disclose to you yet, we'll not be using low-level technique on tonight's operation. Yes, well, we've got a clear night, and it should stay that way over the target. I'll come in first and mark for you from 5,000. You'll come in this order. Munro first, then Shannon, McCarthy, and Clayton.
Warn me, Mr. Captain. Target coming up to port now, sir.
I see it. Nice and clear. Be flak about, gunners. Give me radio, Wappy.
You're on, Skipper.
This is leader. Target coming up to port. Conditions clear. Watch for flak. I'm going straight in. Over. Captain to crew. I'm going down to 5,000. Hang on to your hats. Captain to bomb aimer. Leveling out now. It's all yours.
Here it is, Skipper. Target coming up. Left a bit. Left. Right a bit. Steady. Steady. Marcus gone. Bang on, Skipper, dead center.
Nice work, bomb aimer. Give me radio, Wappy.
You're on.
This is leader. Markers down, dead center. Bombers ordered. Over. Captain to crew. I'm going to stooge around and draw some of this flak. Tell me what goes on, boys. Go for the lights, gunners.
Monroe's let go, Skipper. Beautiful throw, beautiful. Hey, fellas, will you look at that? Just look at the...
Cut all unnecessary chatter.
Shannon's coming in now. Oh, beautiful, Ron, beautiful.
How'd I go, Skipper? How'd I go? Sitting duck, Davy. Sitting duck. Try and pull some of this flak away, will you? Okay, Skipper. See you in the mess. And her. Over.
I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it, Skipper. When Munro came in on top of you, the whole place lit up like a fireworks display.
Shannon owes me a drink for that.
Happy to pay it, boy. Happy to pay it.
As far as I could see, Davy, you and Mac must have hit an explosive dump. You were right off the line of the buildings, but, well, whatever you hit went up like a volcano.
Bonnie Clayton came in over the top of that. He put his down right in the center of the explosion.
Seems an awful waste, Skipper. Can we go to bed now? I'm tired.
Bed. Who wants to go to bed? I want a drink.
Hey, look, don't forget to phone your wife.
Yeah.
Oh, Caesar, I almost forgot. Line one up for me, boys. Won't be long.
Yeah. Okay, another drink over.
Cheshire speaking.
Hello, this is Cochrane. I got your report last night. Very nice work.
Will it help us, do you think?
I think it'll help us a great deal. I want you to pack an overnight bag, then fly down and pick me up at headquarters.
Oh, well, what's doing, sir?
We are going down to have dinner with Harris. And, I think that by the time we get to the port, he might be ready to talk about a couple of mosquitoes.
The trouble today, Cocky, is that there's no grace left in war. You remember when we were in Iraq in the first show?
Yes, only too well. But there are some things about Iraq I'd rather forget.
Yes. I seem to remember some sort of an international incident. She was Russian, wasn't she?
I have an uncomfortable memory, too. Remember?
Yeah, it was different altogether. She wasn't married.
Well, it sounds as if I'm right out of my class, gentlemen.
I doubt it. You're just young, that's all. More brandy?
No, thanks, sir.
Cheshire, what makes you think you can mark from Northfleet in Mosquito and get away with it?
The fact that we can mark from Northfleet in a Lancaster. We can, you know. We've done it repeatedly. The only thing is that the Mosquito is faster and nippier. Gives us a reasonable chance in the face of heavy opposition.
Yeah. What do you think, Cocky?
Exactly the same as Cheshire. The boys can mark accurately from 0, but with heavy flak it's sheer murder. I believe that with a Mosquito, we can have a go at any target under the sun and mark within 20 yards accuracy.
I see. I studied these last operations of yours with a lot of care. I believe you can do what you say. Now, tell me what you think of this one. You ever been to Munich, Cheshire?
No, sir.
I've always wanted to plaster it properly, but I've never succeeded.
Why not, sir?
Because the hellhole. It's got 400 heavy guns.
That's one for your corner, Cheshire.
You think you could mark that from 0 and get away with it?
With mosquitoes? Yes.
Now, just a minute, Cheshire. I agree you could probably do that, but I never like doing a thing expensively if it be done cheaply.
What do you mean, sir?
I mean that the proper way to do this is to get your 2 mosquitoes, take them out of some practice operations where there aren't 400 guns, then you know exactly what you can do with them.
Yes, sir. I can see that. So long as we get the mosquitoes.
You're a stubborn devil, aren't you, Cheshire? All right. I'll get you 2 mosquitoes on loan for a month. If at the end of that time you can mark Munich accurately for me, I'll let you keep them.
As always, when he was gripped by a new idea, Cheshire was on tenterhooks until the mosquitoes arrived. But eventually they did, and he wasted no time in taking one up for a flip with McCarthy.
Like a bird, Skipper, like a bird. Bit different from the Lanx, Mac. And how? Look here, I'm going to try the old dams technique. Dive from 1850, then flatten out over the target and pull her straight up again. I want you to try a practice drop. Okay, Skipper. Circling now. Going down, Mac. Going down. Out she comes. Steady. Steady. Bombs away.
A little beauty.
You know Cochrane, Bennett? Of course. Bennett, this is Cheshire 617 Squadron. Bennett is Chief of Pathfinder Forces, you know.
I'm happy to meet you, sir.
Right, let's get down to business. I have called you here today, gentlemen, as a result of direct instructions from Cabinet. The Germans have been pushing forward at great speed with rocket and long-range gun bases just over the Channel. Intelligence reports indicate that these weapons are being trained on London and the invasion ports. The speed of the building operations has quite shocked Cabinet, and, to put it quite briefly, unless the installations are smashed before the rockets are completed, London will be reduced to a heap of rubble, and our plans for a second front in Europe will be seriously disrupted. I don't exaggerate. The situation is so serious that the Prime Minister is calling for twice-daily intelligence reports.
What sort of weapons are these rockets, Bert?
Oh, we've had varying reports. Some of them suggest that the actual weight of explosive in the warhead will be over 10 tons, and that the rate of production is something over 1,000 a week. Personally, I doubt that. But we've got to provide against it. What have we got to hit them with? And the only thing is this tall boy of Wallace's. You know, the earthquake job. But that won't be ready for some time. And more than that, when they are ready, they'll have to be dropped from 18,000 feet if they've got enough speed up to penetrate 20 feet of concrete.
Pinpoint from 18,000 feet. Well, that's a tall order, sir.
Yeah, it's even taller than you know. The installations will be so well camouflaged that a bomb aimer will have trouble getting them in his bomb sight even in the daytime. There's another thing. These tall boys will take an awful lot of production. They're very slow to make, and we won't have any to waste.
So we get back to the marking problem again,
Yeah, that's right. Marking. That's why I've called you here today.
I should tell you quite frankly that the Pathfinders are not equipped to mark as accurately as that.
Damn it all, Bennett. They've got to mark.
No use saying one thing and meaning another, Bert. Pathfinders are not equipped for the job.
Well, I'd like to suggest, sir, that as 617 will be doing the bombing, we should do the marking as well.
What makes you think you can do it if the Pathfinders can't?
Well, sir, Pathfinders have been trained to mark from high and medium levels. There isn't time to alter the training. 617, on the other hand, have all been trained in low-level technique.
Why can't it be done from medium level?
I'll tell you, sir. You'd have to run up straight and level. At that height, the searchlights would blind you so that you couldn't see the target, and the flak would be pretty sure to cut you to pieces anyway. Why, I think, sir, that we could mark it at very low level in a diving attack.
Not in the Lancasters?
No, sir, not in the Lancaster. In a Mosquito. I've been trying out the two we've got on loan. They're so fast we could be in and out before the defences could nail us.
I don't agree, Cheshire. The mosquitoes are fast, but not all that fast. You'll have enormous casualties. Mosquitoes are my job, I ought to know.
Low level is my job, sir. In any case, if you don't do it my way, I don't see there's any other way you can do it.
Well, looks like a stalemate. There can't be a stalemate. However we do it, however much it costs, the job's got to be done. If it's not done, London will be flattened and the invasion ports turned into a shambles. Well, Bennett.
It's not a job for the Pathfinders.
All right, leave the Pathfinders out of it. That puts it back to your boys, Cochrane.
We'll get down to it right away, sir. Anything more to say, Cheshire?
No, sir. We're training on mosquitoes now. Give us another fortnight, and we're ready for whatever job you can't hand out.
Well, we've really bought ourselves a job this time, Cheshire.
I know that, sir. But, you know, I'm certain we can do it. Still, I would like to know more about this new bomb of Wallace's.
Yes, I was thinking about that. You know, it might be an idea for you to go down to Weybridge and talk to him about it.
I'll go down tomorrow. You'd better give me some sort of a letter of authorization.
Yes, well, come back now and have dinner with me. I'll give you the letter before you leave. By the way, I believe you had visitors the other day.
Oh, you mean the Yanks? Yes, top brass. Spats and Doolittle. I couldn't quite get used to the idea of calling them General. By the way, I've got a bet on with General Spats, by the way.
And what's the bet?
$100 even money that we can't land a bomb in a pickle barrel.
You know, Cheshire, that's just about what you'll have to do to these rocket sites. I think the sooner you talk to Wallace, the better.
Mr. Wallace, I thought you'd be able to tell me something about the effects of this bomb on concrete installations.
Well, you know, my dear chap, I hadn't really designed it for concrete. So I think it might not be a good thing to drop them on the roofs of the blockhouses. They might bounce off again, you know, like corks.
Oh, might they? I hadn't thought of that.
The proper thing to do is just to drop them down at the side. In the earth, you see. Then they'll blow the sides in.
Yes, sir. Blow the sides in.
Germans are very foolish, you know. Now, if I were building those blockhouses, I'd make the sides much thicker than the top.
I see the point, sir, of course, but we will be 18,000 feet up.
18,000 or 1,800 doesn't matter.
Oh.
The fact remains that the most vulnerable part of the blockhouse is the side. Now, got a moment to spare? Here. Now, have a look at this diagram.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you can drop your bomb so that its nose comes right here, the point of this pin, down the side.
Yes.
The side of the blockhouse, not on top.
Yes, of course.
The effects will be quite devastating.
Quite devastating. Yes, I understand that, Mr. Wallace, but I want you to look at it from our point of view. We'll be 18,000 feet up in the air.
Well,
that's more than 3 miles up.
Yes.
Well, from that distance, the blockhouse itself will be just a small speck. It's one thing, you know, to stick a pin in a diagram. It's quite another to drop a bomb within 2 feet of the target.
Oh, well, if I'd known you wanted to scatter the bombs around the countryside like grass seed, I'd never have bothered to design them.
Gentlemen, the AOC.
Tonight's operation is an important one from several points of view. It marks the end of a training period during which we have been trying to make this squadron completely independent of other formations. In other words, you will mark for yourselves with mosquitoes, and you will bomb for yourselves. It's important from another point of view, too. If this operation is successful, you will be given larger and more important targets. Your commander and myself have committed ourselves, and you, to certain guarantees. I feel sure you won't disappoint us. Your target for tonight is here, Toulouse, in the south of France. It's a large aircraft factory, reasonably well defended. Now, these blow-ups here show the location and contours of the target. The weather's fine. You shouldn't have any difficulty in getting onto the target. Cheshire will mark for you in a mosquito. He'll come in at deck level. The rest of you will bomb from 10,000 feet.
Happy days, Skipper.
Yeah, good luck, Skipper. Well, that's all I have to say to you. But there is one final point. I'll be in the operations room myself tonight, and if I get the news I want, I'll be one of the happiest men in England. I'm not free to tell you what all this is leading up to, but I can tell you it will be the greatest thing you have ever done. Good luck, chaps. Safe home. What's the time?
5 minutes after 0, sir.
Yes, we should have word through shortly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What's going on? The old man's as jumpy as a cat tonight.
Don't know why it should be. It's just a routine job.
Yeah, there was some talk of a new technique.
Yeah, I'd always tried out new techniques. Don't mean a thing. Things are getting duller. Hey, here it comes now, sir.
Yes, I can read it. There's far below. Repeat. There's far below. They've done it! They've done it!
Thanks very much for joining us. Sunday Night with Old Time Radio appears every Sunday night from 8 to 11 Central Time. We hope that you'll always join us. Until then, sleep tight. This is a production of Lobato Studios, Sao Paulo, Brazil.